Chapter 2027. The Haoming City was known as one of the 7 major cities of the country of Xi, and it was not an undeserved reputation. A mountain range that was several hundred feet high was towering under the clear sky. The mountain range stretched for more than 10 miles. There were many cultivators riding on clouds above the mountain range, going up and down from time to time. Among them, there were also immortal birds that spread their wings and circled around the mountain range. Some of them had people on their backs, while some didn't. If one looked carefully, they would see that there were some palaces, pavilions, and simple caves where the cultivators went in and out of the mountain range. They were quite different from ordinary immortal caves. If one were to observe carefully, they would be able to see that although there were many cultivators flying above the mountain range, the higher they flew, the fewer there were. At the bottom of the mountain range, there were the largest number of cultivators, and they had the widest range of activity. They were Qi condensation cultivators. The mountain range was covered with dark green vegetation. The vegetation was not the same, and each had its own unique characteristics. Every place had its own beauty. However, there was a faint light flickering under the vegetation, and there were even faint runes flowing. A single rune didn't look special, but if the runes on the entire mountain range were connected, the mountain range's aura would immediately be aggressive. Looking at the bottom of the mountain range, there was a strip of open space that was several miles wide, enclosing the entire mountain range. There were many buildings on the open space, and there were many secular people. These people were bustling with activity, and it was very lively. This was the entire Haoming City. The people on the ground were the secular people of Haoming City, and the cultivators on the mountain range were the cultivators of Haoming City. It really lives up to its reputation. At this moment, Xiaohua flew over from midair and saw the majestic aura of Haoming City from afar. He couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Xiaohua came out of the ink-shadow black forest and didn't rest much. He found the nearest teleportation formation and went directly to Haoming City. However, when he reached the last teleportation formation, there was a problem. Because Haoming City was going to hold an auction in the next few days, and there were too many cultivators going to Haoming City, Taoist Master Quan Hong of Haoming City issued an order that the teleportation formation would only accept cultivators above the gold core stage. Foundation establishment cultivators and Qi refining cultivators could only rely on themselves to fly over. Therefore, Xiaohua had no choice but to ask for directions and fly over himself. However, this was also good. Xiaohua had obtained Immortal Bright Sword Heart Energy Seed technique in the Mozhao Black Forest, but he had never carefully comprehended it. Now that he was comprehending it while flying, by the time he saw Haoming City, he had already comprehended most of its essence. However, Xiaohua valued this Sword Heart Origin Seed art. It was far from being used on a flying sword. Therefore, he had no choice but to be extremely cautious. He was afraid that there would be a problem if he took it out to comprehend. At the same time, he also took out the Ghost Cultivator's Spirit Splitting Art, Li Xiaobai's Primordial Spirit Strengthening Art, and the Blood Shadow Art. He scrutinized them one by one. Forget it. It seems like Haoming City is already near, but if I were to fly closer, wouldn't I still need a day's worth of effort if I were to use an ordinary flying technique? Xiaohua released his divine sense like a waterfall. He looked to his left, found a hidden place, and landed. This place was already very close to Haoming City. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth was abundant, and the scenery was beautiful. It was 100 times better than the left side of the Mozhao Black Forest. Xiaohua released the puppets and easily opened up a simple cave on a stone wall near the water. After that, he set up the rabbit array formation and sat down cross-legged. He opened his mouth and Zhu Meng flew out. When the Dream Execution sword landed in his hand, the sword light shrank and contracted slightly, appearing extremely agile. Xiaohua smiled and muttered to himself. This sword pill is actually Senior Li Xiaobai's 9 stars transverse sun sword pill. There is also the sword intent sealed by Senior inside. This is something that sword cultivators yearn for. If I were to go around looking for sword cultivation techniques, wouldn't I be guarding a treasure mountain and begging for food? Moreover, With Immortal Bright Sword Heart Energy Seed Art, I can plant a trace of my primordial spirit in the other 8 sword pills and let them slowly germinate and grow. Presumably, it won't be long before I can use the 9 stars transfer Sun Sword Art, and even sword playing the world, right? However, Senior Bright Sword has been immersed in sword Dao since he was a child. Although this secret technique of his is different, he still has a very deep background as a sword cultivator. It might not be difficult for a sword cultivator, but for me, it will be a bit of a challenge. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then closed his eyes and read the Sword Heart Energy Seed Art again. Then, he waved the flying sword and it floated in front of him. Xiaohua's hands then formed an extremely strange seal, and he tapped the space between his eyebrows. The magic power in his body gradually surged toward the seal in his hands, and his divine sense also contracted. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, pain appeared on Xiaohua's face, and bean-sized drops of sweat formed on his forehead. An unparalleled pain, a sharp pain that felt like it was tearing him apart, and a feeling that life was worse than death arose in Xiaohua's head. There was a rumbling sound, and the space in Xiaohua's mind shook like an earthquake. Little Silver and the other spirit beasts looked in horror at the starry sky that had suddenly changed. Little Yellow, Thunder Beast, and the others, who were sleeping soundly, also opened their eyes slightly and looked very sleepily. Quick! Xiaohua uttered an incantation, and his hands trembled as he formed a seal. As the incantation entered his body, Xiaohua felt his mind go blank and his head sway. It was as if the entire world had become 2 overlapping worlds. He knew in his heart that the initial primordial spirit split had been successful, and a wisp of primordial spirit had been torn from the complete primordial spirit. Resisting the extreme discomfort, Xiaohua hurriedly used a secret technique to send that wisp of primordial spirit into Executioner Dream. Just as that wisp of primordial spirit entered Executioner Dream, a sword light as brilliant as a shooting star came from the distance, and flew toward Xiaohua's primordial spirit. That suffocating flowing light gave people a feeling that they couldn't escape, a feeling that made people want to be torn apart. Xiaohua knew that this was Executioner Dream's sword intent, and didn't dare be careless. He urged his primordial spirit to fly toward the sword intent, like a moth flying into a flame. With a boom, Xiaohua only felt his vision darken as that wisp of primordial spirit became entangled with the sword intent. Xiaohua hurriedly continued to use the elemental planting technique to fuse his primordial spirit and the sword intent tightly together. Like a sweet rain, the sword intent slowly flowed within Xiaohua's primordial spirit, gradually nourishing Xiaohua's injured primordial spirit. After an unknown period of time, the primordial spirit within the sword intent seemed to have fallen asleep, and there was no more movement. Great! Xiaohua sighed. He knew that the sword heart elemental planting technique was basically a success. He only needed to wait for that wisp of primordial spirit in the sword intent to gradually grow stronger under the sword cultivator's secret technique, and then he would be able to use his primordial spirit to control the sword. This method was indeed effective, but the pain was really too great. -8. Chapter 2028. Hee, Immortal Mingjian is really a genius. It's a pity that he can only use this method to drive a flying sword. He doesn't dare to split a trace of his primordial spirit. Xiaohua endured the pain of his primordial spirit, and secretly laughed. He doesn't know the ghost cultivator's soul-splitting technique. Every time he splits his primordial spirit, I'm afraid it's not just half of it. If he is like Senior Li Xiaobai and splits his primordial spirit into 9, then wouldn't his primordial spirit be smaller? The other primordial spirits would easily devour their masters, right? I'm afraid this is also the reason why Senior Li Xiaobai didn't dare to try. Subsequently, Xiaohua closed his eyes and adjusted his breath, waiting for the pain in his primordial spirit to lessen slightly. With a wave of his hand, he took out the jade bottle containing the green python's venom. He used a secret technique and took out a drop of venom from the jade bottle. He used a secret technique to divide it into 9. Then, he calmed his heart and once again waved his hand, taking out the roots of the beauty-retaining grass from the space. Since the beauty-retaining grass, which was already dead in the eyes of Qin Yi and Chen Kui, was thrown into the space by Xiao Hua, the beauty-retaining grass didn't have any movement at first. Xiao Hua even looked at it before entering the ink cloud black forest, and he basically didn't have any hope. However, after Xiao Hua was trapped by the black sand and desperately used a secret technique to temper his true essence and push his cultivation to the middle stage of foundation establishment, there were some changes in the space. Because of these changes, the beauty-retaining grass also changed. It seemed to have lost its vitality long ago, but it was slowly recovering. However, it was only recovering, and its vitality was still being strangled by the beast poison. However, in the space behind Xiaohua's head, the beast poison seemed to have some restrictions. It was not as fierce as it was in the outside world. Therefore, when Xiaohua entered the secret place of the ink cloud black forest, he didn't look at it. Xiaohua only wanted the beauty-retaining grass to suppress the beast poison with its vitality, and then he would remove the beast poison himself. However, after coming out of the ink cloud black forest, Xiaohua looked at the space several times. The vitality of the beauty-retaining grass was really weak, and it could only compete with the dormant beast poison. If he wanted to suppress the beast poison, it seemed impossible. Therefore, Xiaohua simply took action today. If he succeeded, he would get a beauty-retaining grass, otherwise he would give up. When Xiaohua took out the roots of the beauty-retaining grass from the space, the beast poison immediately launched a counterattack as if it had awakened. The already slightly dim black threads suddenly swelled up. Go! Xiaohua had long since made preparations. Without hesitation, he waved the spell he had already formed and a portion of the green python's venom flew into the beauty-retaining grass. Xiaohua had already saved 4 stalks of beauty-retaining grass in the burial flower manner, so he was very familiar with this method of fighting poison with poison. However, this stalk of beauty-retaining grass had been poisoned too deeply. Xiaohua had to use 2 drops of the green azure python's venom, and use the time of a meal to clear out most of the beast poison. Ha! Xiaohua saw the pitch-black color of the beauty-retaining grass gradually fade away, and his heart was overjoyed. This kind of rare spirit grass was the favorite of female cultivators. If he could find the pill formula for the beauty-retaining pill and cultivate a large amount of beauty-retaining grass, then, wouldn't he be able to easily obtain large amounts of spirit stones? Carefully putting the beauty-retaining grass back into the space, he drove the puppet to open up a medicine garden for the beauty-retaining grass in a separate place. Xiaohua frowned, because in the burial flower manner, the beauty-retaining grass was made into a medicine garden using the best quality spirit stones. Presumably, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth poured into it was also extremely rich. Maybe there was some special cultivation method. Xiaohua prepared to casually plant it. Who knew whether it would work or not? It has to work even if it doesn't. Xiaohua curled his lips. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in this young master's space is abundant. Could it be that it still can't raise this insignificant beauty-retaining grass? Mother! Goldie's voice sounded, still extremely sleepy. What happened just now? The sky shook and the earth shook. Huh! Goldie, you woke up? You actually know that the sky shook and the earth shook? Xiaohua said in pleasant surprise. No, Mother, I'm still sleepy. Boy slept a little longer. Goldie blinked, and then narrowed his eyes again. Oh! Xiaohua responded, then suddenly asked. You slept for so long, when did you wake up? Did you grow a little? Boy just fell asleep. Goldie was confused. The boy feels like he grew a little. Then there was no more sound. Little Silver! Xiaohua didn't care whether Little Silver could hear him or not, and instructed. You absolutely can't touch this spirit grass. Little Silver straightened up in the medicine garden that he could eat at will, and very skillfully extended his 2 little paws, cupped them in front of his chest, and bowed up and down to indicate that he understood. Heh, this little guy is becoming more and more sensible. Xiaohua smiled and looked elsewhere in the space. Although he had already taken out the spirit storage bag and could take Goldie, Little Silver, the Ice Worm King Egg, the Water Butterfly and the others there, he also knew that this space was a little strange and would definitely be extremely beneficial for the growth of these spirit beasts. Therefore, he didn't touch anything other than putting the mighty strength centipede into the spirit storage bag. Of course, given Xiaohua's current cultivation, the mighty strength centipede really didn't do anything, so he just left it there. Forget it, let this guy go back to the space too. Thinking this, Xiaohua sent the mighty strength centipede back into the space. What about the water in the pool? Xiaohua thought it would be fun for a moment, and moved some of the deep pool water in the hidden area of Ink Cloud Black Forest into his space. He didn't know what to do with it now. The water butterfly grows in the swamp. I'll put its eggs in the rainbow epiphyllum into the pool. As Xiaohua thought about it, he took out a few stalks of Aeolian bamboo that had already recovered their emerald green color, as well as a dozen or so new stalks of Aeolian bamboo, and placed them beside the pool. Unfortunately, there were no Aeolian insects here, and the Aeolian bamboo was just bamboo. Afterwards, Xiaohua took care of some things before withdrawing his primordial spirit from the space. Xiaohua didn't drive the puppet to do these things, but only relied on his primordial spirit. The pain gradually disappeared, and the faint movements gradually became more and more skillful. The primordial spirit in the space is like a hand. At first, it can carry things, but now it can work. After it's proficient, it can think about how to control the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and use the incantation in the space. In this way, it can set up restrictions in the space, and put all kinds of things in different categories. Xiaohua somewhat understood. Moreover, that nascent soul cultivator was able to turn the spiritual chi of heaven and earth into a big hand. It should be the same method. Thinking of the nascent soul cultivator, Xiaohua thought of Chan Yefeng. Chan Yefeng's clear sky mirror sounds familiar, but it doesn't seem familiar. However, since it's related to this young master's origin, then I'll go to the rock border sect of the Lian country in the future. Alas, everything is meaningless. I'd better hurry up and improve my cultivation. Xiaohua almost lost his life in the Black Forest, and his heart had long been confused by the realm and cultivation. He couldn't wait to immediately go into seclusion to cultivate, but thinking of Shui, Xiaohua's heart was sweet. I'd better accompany her back from the seaside. Moreover, refining the Linglei pill isn't something that can be done in a day. It's best to go to the seaside and find a place with elegant scenery to refine the pill in the morning and accompany the beauty at night. That's... Thinking of this, Xiaohua was suddenly shocked, and his face changed. Damn it, this young master is a little selfish. This young master's enemy is so powerful, I'm afraid it can compete with the Imperial Thunder Sect. This young master joined the Imperial Thunder Sect, and they didn't stop me. Maybe they don't care about the Imperial Thunder Sect at all. This young master and Fairy Hong Xia dual cultivated. After all, the situation at that time was forced, and this young master didn't know it. Now that this young master knows that he's in a dangerous situation, how can I drag Shui into it? She should just peacefully and steadily be a disciple of Sunlei Palace, and walk as far as she could on the path of cultivation, free and unfettered? It's better than being taken advantage of by this young master's enemy after dual cultivating with this young master. Wouldn't that be harming her life? But how can I explain it to Shui? Xiaohua's face was cloudy and uncertain, and he was really hesitant. Thinking of the changes Shui had made for him, and thinking of the good Shui, Xiaohua really didn't know what to do. Forget it, this is all for later. First, I'll help Shui build her foundation and send her back to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Xiaohua sighed. Let the Imperial Thunder Sect protect her first, and after this young master beheads my enemy, it won't be too late to dual cultivate with her. Soon after, Xiaohua used the sky-stealing sun-swapping technique to conceal his cultivation level, and he still looked like an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Only then did he fly out from his hiding place and fly towards Haoming City. Xiaohua had only been flying for half an hour, but he had already met many other cultivators along the way. However, their cultivations were all below the gold core stage, so Xiaohua was too lazy to pay attention to them. Only when those aura-refining cultivators respectfully bowed to him did he show a slight smile. It seems that the auction in Haoming City is going to be very noisy. Many people want to find things that are useful for their cultivation here. Xiaohua sighed with emotion. There were already many things in his space, but there weren't many that were useful for his cultivation. Like those cultivators, he also wanted to follow Huafurong to the auction that nascent soul cultivators could participate in to see if there were any strange items that he needed. Rumble, rumble. The sound of a fireball exploding rang out less than a few miles in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua scanned with his divine sense and couldn't help but frown slightly. A few miles away, there were 3 qi-refining cultivators, all of whom were in the 11th layer of the qi-refining realm. 2 of the qi-refining cultivators were in a group and were confronting another cultivator. The lone cultivator was holding a stack of fireball talismans in his hand, and he was the one who threw the fireball. The other 2 cultivators were also holding yellow talismans in their hands. However, one of the cultivators wasn't wearing an ordinary Taoist robe, but a kind of armor. The style of this armor was similar to that of Shang Qinghe, the guard of Haoming City that Xiaohua had seen before. Needless to say, this cultivator was a guard of Haoming City. Xiaohua didn't frown because of this. Instead, there were several Foundation Establishment cultivators in front of him, and one of them was even in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. These people only scanned with their divine sense, and when they saw that there was a guard of Haoming City, they immediately withdrew their divine sense and continued flying forward as if they hadn't seen anything. -8. Chapter 2029. At this moment, the city guard of Haoming City clapped his hands and took out a rope-like magic tool. He muttered something in the air and was about to cast it. The cultivator on the other side was quick-witted. Seeing that something was wrong, he immediately threw out a pile of fireball talismans and flew toward the nearest middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator. He shouted, "Senior, save me, Junior!" Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, the Foundation Establishment cultivator flicked his sleeve and accelerated his flying speed, ignoring him completely. The cultivator was slightly stunned. However, seeing the 2 people chasing after him, he didn't dare to hesitate and flew toward Xiaohua again. However, although he flew early, his cultivation level didn't seem to be as high as the 2 people behind him. Moreover, the city guard had already cast out his magic tool and caught up with the cultivator in the air like a fish. Before the cultivator could ask for help, his hands and feet were bound by the rope, and his whole body fell from the air. Fellow Taoist spy, why do you have to do this? We just got the news and made a deal with you in advance. We won't owe you any spirit stones, so why do you have to be so stiff? The city guard said with a smile. I don't want to make a deal with you, so what? The bound cultivator was still cursing while being held in the city guard's hand. I want to exchange for Foundation Establishment pills at the auction. What's the point of giving me those spirit stones? Slap! The city guard slapped the cultivator's face and scolded. Bai Fengyang, you're just a small individual cultivator. How can you be so ignorant? How can you cultivate to the 11th layer of the aura refining realm with such a rude temper? In my opinion, you should have been killed long ago. Senior Marshal Brother Lu, you don't know. Another cultivator said with a smile. This guy is really stubborn. I heard that a disciple of a sect invited him to join, but he refused. Is that so? Senior Marshal Brother Lu asked curiously. Which sect is it? Why does this guy have such high standards? I only heard about it, so I'm not too sure. The cultivator was a little embarrassed. It seems to be some heaven something sect, right? Heaven devil sect? Xiaohua's eyes and ears were outstanding, so he had heard everything. He subconsciously swept his divine sense over. Senior Brother Lu's interest was piqued. He stretched out his hand and a yellow talisman hit Bai Fengliang's body. Bai Fengliang's body twisted rapidly as if he was in extreme pain. Fellow Taoist spy, I'm very curious. Can you tell me about it? Senior Marshal Brother Lu asked with a smile. It's nothing. However, since you're trying to intimidate me like this, how can I tell you? Bai Fengliang said through gritted teeth. Blood had already seeped out of his teeth. It's good that you know how to show off your strength. Senior Brother Lu sneered. I offered you a toast, but you refused to take it the hard way. Now I won't give you a single spirit stone. As he spoke, he raised his hand and was about to pull out the small storage bag from Bai Fengliang's body. Wait! Seeing this, Xiaohua shouted in a low voice, urging his body to fly to the three people's side. The city guard of Haoming City was a little surprised. It wasn't that he didn't see Xiaohua, but there were a few cultivators nearby who pretended not to see him, so he was a little bold. Junior Lu Qing greets Senior. That city guard was very respectful and well-mannered. He didn't reveal his identity, only mentioning his name. Junior Li Minji greets Senior. Another cultivator also bowed and saluted. And get up! Xiaohua waved his hand and said with a smile. I've seen what you've been waiting for. It's just some things for cultivation. Why do you have to be like this? What you've done today can certainly satisfy your own needs, but what about Bai Fengliang? What will he think? Do you think he'll let you go if he succeeds in his cultivation in the future? Humph. Lu Qing's voice was obviously not directed at Xiaohua. He glanced at Bai Fengliang and said respectfully to Xiaohua, It's not that I don't want to give fellow Taoist Bai face, but since he obtained the Ruiming Gold, fellow Taoist Li has been negotiating with him. He has always refused, saying that fellow Taoist Li gave too few spirit stones. That's why fellow Taoist Li came looking for me. We pulled together some spirit stones, added other spirit herbs, yellow talismans, and so on, but he still didn't agree. Don't you think he's making fun of me? Senior! Don't listen to his nonsense. Bai Fengliang was very happy to see Xiaohua standing up for him. He shouted, The Ruiming Gold is a material used to refine flying swords. It's extremely rare. I'm a loose cultivator, and it's not easy to obtain this material. Of course, I want to use it for something important. What do I need the spirit stones and spiritual herbs they mentioned? I just want to use this Ruiming Gold to exchange for a foundation establishment pill. Fellow Taoist Bai, I don't want to criticize you. This Ruiming Gold is indeed rare, but it's not worth a foundation establishment pill, right? Li Minji couldn't help but refute. If Senior Marshal Brother Lu and I didn't really need this Ruiming Gold, who would look for you so many times? I'm willing. What can you do about it? Bai Fengliang scolded again. You want to curry favor with the newly appointed city guard captain of Haoming City, but what does that have to do with me? Seeing that Bai Fengliang was so bad-tempered, Xiaohua also frowned slightly and said coldly, Bai Fengliang, since I'm here, you should speak honestly. If you continue to be so stubborn, I'll leave in a huff. Yes, I know I'm wrong. Bai Fengliang saw that Xiaohua was angry and quickly shut up. Lu Qing and Li Minji looked at each other with a worried expression. Put him down! Xiaohua grabbed with his hand, and the rope that bound Bai Fengliang was immediately shaken off. Bai Fengliang's figure shook a few times, and he activated the flight talisman to stand in midair. Hiss! Lu Qing was slightly shocked when he saw Xiaohua easily shackle his magic tool. Xiaohua said again, Lu Qing, as a city guard of Haoming City, you bullied an aura refining disciple near Haoming City. It's quite damaging to Haoming City's reputation. I don't dare! Lu Qing quickly bowed and said, I can't go far from Haoming City, so I can only intercept Bai Fengliang here with fellow Taoist Li. Moreover, I don't dare to abuse my authority as a city guard of Haoming City, so I intercepted Bai Fengliang outside the city for this reason. The other foundation establishment seniors don't care. I'm afraid they don't care about us aura refining disciples, right? Seeing that Lu Qing was so clever and didn't use too fierce methods when fighting just now, Xiaohua felt that what he said should be right. He couldn't help but sigh at the way the foundation establishment cultivators before him sought advantages and avoided disadvantages. Amen, this old man doesn't care about your previous dispute. However, this old man has a matter to discuss with Bai Feng Liang, so I have no choice but to extend my hand. As Xiaohua spoke, he turned his head and said to Bai Feng Liang, "If you agree to this old man's matter, this old man will have Lu Qing and the other person release you. You should know that they won't give you any chance." -8. Chapter 2030. Bai Fengliang's expression changed slightly. He thought for a moment, and shook his head. "Senior, please explain the matter clearly first. Otherwise, I won't agree." Then, he looked at Lu Qing and the others. "If they can kill me, I'll just suffer for a while. But if they can't kill me, I'll definitely kill them in the future. This is much better than Senior torturing Junior for the rest of his life." "Ha!" Xiaohua patted his own forehead. He was really laughing for this somewhat stubborn cultivator. "Take out your Weiming gold." Xiaohua laughed, and said, "This?" Bai Fengliang hesitated. "So troublesome." Xiaohua waved his hand and used the great confinement technique. How could Bai Fengliang resist? He watched as Xiaohua took the storage pouch from his waist. "Well, there are a lot of things. Unfortunately, only this Weiming stone is worth some spirit stones," Xiaohua said with a smile as he opened the storage pouch and scanned it with his divine sense. Bai Fengliang was terrified when he saw Xiaohua imprisoning him so casually that he couldn't even speak. However, his eyes were burning with anger. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't speak, he would have started cursing. "Well, Lu Qing, take out the things you want to exchange for the Weiming stone." Xiaohua looked at Lu Qing again. Lu Qing naturally knew what Xiaohua wanted to do. He didn't even look at Li Minji. He reached out his hand and handed the storage pouch to Xiaohua. He smiled apologetically and said, "Senior, thank you for your help. This is what I want to exchange with this guy. Senior, you'll know what I said is displeasing." "Good." Of course, Xiaohua had looked at it very carefully. He nodded and said, "Although you are a guard of Haoming City, you have never bullied others. What you did today is indeed inappropriate, but I won't make things difficult for you." "Thank you, Senior. If Senior needs anything in Haoming City, please let me know." Lu Qing bowed and said. Xiaohua didn't pay any attention to him. He took everything from the storage pouch and handed the Weiming stone to Lu Qing, saying, "Okay, you can wait." "Yes." Lu Qing took the Weiming stone with a happy expression on his face. Together with Li Minji, he saluted Xiaohua and urged the flying talisman to fly in the direction of Haoming City. After Lu Qing and Li Minji flew far away, Xiaohua looked at Bai Fengliang, whose eyes were about to spit fire. He waved his hand, took out a foundation establishment pill, and said, "Look carefully, this is a foundation establishment pill." Finished speaking, he placed the foundation establishment pill into Bai Fengliang's storage pouch. With a wave of his hand, he removed the restriction on Bai Fengliang's body and threw the storage pouch into his bosom. "This?" Bai Fengliang's face was naturally filled with joy, but he was somewhat puzzled. "Senior, you are..." Xiaohua looked him up and down and said, "What do you think of this ending?" Bai Fengliang scratched his head and smiled apologetically. "Of course it's the best of both worlds. However, Senior used the foundation establishment pills to exchange for those spiritual grasses and spirit stones. I'm afraid it's a loss. However, what if your life is included?" Xiaohua said with a smile that was not a smile. "That was all because Lu Qing used his power to bully others," Bai Fengliang said somewhat angrily. "If he hadn't intercepted this junior with Li Minji again, those who are too strong break easily, those who are too soft are undefeated. Bai Fengliang, presumably you also understand this principle," Xiaohua said patiently. Seeing Xiaohua being so amiable and approachable, Bai Fengliang couldn't help but sigh. This junior naturally understands. However, this junior's temper is like this. If others were to be soft, it would be easy to negotiate. However, if they insist on being tough, this junior would rather die than submit. Naturally, this junior. Alas, no matter what, this junior has to thank Senior today. Not only do I have to thank Senior for saving this junior's life, I also have to thank Senior for giving up this junior's heart to help this junior. Today, a foundation establishment pill was able to save your life. If you don't change this temper of yours, next time, there won't be a foundation establishment pill that can save you. Xiaohua flicked his sleeve to let him stand up. Bai Fengyang nodded silently and said again, "Didn't Senior say you had something to do just now?" "Senior, please instruct me. If it's within this junior's power, this junior will definitely not shirk." "Oh, you don't have to be so concerned," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Just now, I only used it to give a reason, don't take it seriously." Bai Fengyang was even more surprised and looked at Xiaohua very strangely. Hee, all right. Xiaohua looked all around and said, "Come with this old man." After waiting for the two of them to find a secluded place, Xiaohua set up a silent barrier and asked very calmly, "Just now, Li Minji said that a disciple of some sect specially came to look for you and invited you to join that sect." This old man is a bit puzzled. "You're a loose cultivator, and you don't have any cultivation methods or medicinal pills. Why, aren't you tempted by that sect? Could it be that that sect is too small?" "Oh, this matter." Bai Fengyang suddenly understood and said with a smile, "Senior is talking about the Heavenly Demon sect. It's a sect that has just risen in the last 10 years. "Oh? This old man really hasn't heard of it. I'm afraid it's an extremely small sect, right? Where is their sect?" Xiaohua nodded slightly and asked again. Bai Fengyang shook his head. "Senior, please no. This junior also doesn't know where the Heavenly Demon sect is located. Their disciples are very mysterious. Last time, the disciple who wanted to invite this junior to join the Heavenly Demon sect was a loose cultivator that this junior had met a few times before. In fact, to be honest with Senior, it's not that this junior didn't want to join the Heavenly Demon sect, but that loose cultivator was really bullying. He wanted this junior to hand over rare spiritual herbs or precious refining materials before he was willing to introduce this junior to his master. You also know this junior's temper. A few words were inappropriate, and this junior had a falling out with him. Now that I think about it, this junior also has some regrets. It's all because this junior's temper isn't good." "Oh, do you know anything about the Heavenly Demon sect?" Xiaohua asked with interest. "And, according to that fellow Taoist, their sect master's cultivation is very high and the cultivation methods he grasps are also very many. Just by relying on different cultivation methods, they are divided into several branches." Bai Fengyang thought for a moment and said, "Moreover, the Heavenly Demon sect's way of recruiting disciples is different from other cultivation sections. They don't need too complicated of a selection. Knowing that you have some qi refining cultivation, they can accept you into the sect. In particular, as long as you cultivate to a certain realm, they will definitely give you the corresponding medicinal pills and spirit stones. Senior, think about it, this kind of good thing for loose cultivators like us is really like spiritual herbs falling from the sky." "Oh, right, I don't know if Senior knows that the former Heavenly Forsaken was an organization set up by us loose cultivators. And I've heard of it." Xiaohua was slightly stunned. "What? Is Heavenly Forsaken still there? Wasn't it disbanded long ago?" "No." Bai Fengyang shook his head and said, "This Heavenly Forsaken has never been disbanded. According to that fellow Taoist, the founder of Heavenly Forsaken and the sect master of the Heavenly Demon sect reached some kind of agreement. The loose cultivators of Heavenly Forsaken can join the Heavenly Demon sect at will, and all the cultivation methods of the Heavenly Demon sect are open to the loose cultivators of Heavenly Forsaken." "Ah?" Xiaohua was stunned. He hadn't been a loose cultivator for many years. He originally thought that this Heavenly Forsaken was disbanded because of Qin Fengnin's death, but he didn't expect that it would be accepted by the Heavenly Demon sect. Xiaohua was suddenly shocked again, and secretly said, "The loose cultivators of Heavenly Forsaken are all over the country of Shi, and even the country of Meng and the country of Lian. The Heavenly Demon sect has swallowed up Heavenly Forsaken, the power of the Heavenly Demon sect. Isn't it stronger than the ordinary cultivation sects?" But then he shook his head again. The sect master of the Heavenly Demon sect is only at the early stage of foundation establishment. He is outstanding in Heavenly Forsaken, but compared to the cultivation sects, he can't even compare to a little finger. Even my Imperial Thunder sect's shocking Thunder Palace can completely annihilate a Heavenly Demon sect. But that's not right. Soon after, Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. The demon that we saw earlier was already at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Those two strong men were also at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. They weren't much worse than the demon sect master of the Heavenly Demon sect from several years ago, right? Could it be they have a new sect master? Although Bai Fenliang's temper isn't good, he's not a fool. Seeing Xiaohua specifically ask about the Heavenly Demon sect, and with an extremely interested appearance, he couldn't help but secretly ponder. He whispered, "I wonder if Senior has any grudges with the Heavenly Demon sect?" This old man doesn't have any grudges with the Heavenly Demon sect." Xiaohua raised his head and said, "I'm just very curious about this Heavenly Demon sect." "Oh right, you still want to enter the Heavenly Demon sect, right? And, although Junior has obtained a Foundation establishment pill from Senior, Junior still doesn't have any confidence in Foundation establishment." Bai Fengliang slightly nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist of the Heavenly Demon sect has already said that cultivators at the 11th and 12th level of Qi refinement like Junior are the most popular in the Heavenly Demon sect. As long as I enter the Heavenly Demon sect, I'll definitely have the corresponding Senior's special guidance, as well as the corresponding pills and secret techniques provided to ensure that I can build my foundation. That fellow Taoist covets Junior's pills, that's why he threatened me." "Good!" Xiaohua clapped and said, "Since that's the case, in this old man's opinion, why don't you enter the Heavenly Demon sect? While you're at it, help this old man inquire about the Heavenly Demon sect." Bai Fengliang's gaze flickered as he looked at Xiaohua and said with an apologetic smile, "Since Junior has entered the Heavenly Demon sect, then Junior will consider the Heavenly Demon sect as my sect. Senior, there are some things that Junior may not be able to do." "Don't worry," Xiaohua said with a smile. "This old man won't make you make any hard oaths, nor do I need you to make any promises. I definitely won't give you any threats. This old man only wants to have a chance to meet you in the future. As long as you don't violate the Heavenly Demon sect's rules and you're willing to talk to this old man about the Heavenly Demon sect's situation in detail, that's all." "But," Bai Fengliang bitterly smiled again, "the Heavenly Demon sect isn't a sect that Junior can enter as he pleases." This old man knows." Xiaohua thought for a moment, then with a wave of his hand, he took out some spiritual herbs and handed them to Bai Fengliang, saying, "That cultivator of yours from the Heavenly Demon sect will probably recommend these things to you." "Good." Bai Fengliang saw the spiritual herbs and raised his eyebrows. He was slightly happy in his heart, and reached out to receive them. "There's also these." Xiaohua took out some pills for Qi refinement. -8. Chapter 2031. Xiaohua took out some medicinal pills for Qi refinement, including several foundation building pills, and handed them to Bai Fengliang. "These are for you. With these medicinal pills, I'm sure you can cultivate to the 12th layer of the Qi refinement realm. As for whether you can build your foundation, that's not something I can give you." Soon after, he thought of something and took out even more spiritual plants. "And there are also these spiritual plants. Take them too. If you have the chance, exchange them for some spirit stones and things you need." "Senior!" Bai Fengliang was surprised and happy, but he still hesitated. Junior still doesn't know Senior's name. Moreover, Senior doesn't ask for much from Junior. Junior doesn't dare to believe it. "Ha ha!" Xiaohua stuffed the things into his hands and laughed. "You don't need to know my name. As long as you have the chance in the future, you can answer my questions. However, don't worry, I won't force you. I'll only ask if you're willing." Saying this, Xiaohua waved his hand and tore down the silencing barrier. He turned around and was about to fly away. "Senior!" Bai Fengliang suddenly shouted. "What if Junior doesn't enter the Heavenly Demon sect?" Up to you. Xiaohua didn't look back. Then I congratulate you for having the confidence to cultivate to the foundation building realm. After Xiaohua finished speaking, his figure gradually disappeared. Bai Fengliang looked at Xiaohua's back with a complicated expression. It was unknown what he was thinking. Don't enter the heavenly demon sect? I don't believe it. Xiaohua had already flown away. He wasn't worried that Bai Fengliang wouldn't enter the heavenly demon sect. Without the guidance of a foundation-building cultivator, how can an ordinary Qi refinement realm disciple cultivate to the foundation-building realm? My Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples have to go through a lot of trouble to reach the foundation-building realm. You, a loose cultivator, can easily reach the foundation-building realm? Besides, even if you don't enter the heavenly demon sect, I'll just lose some spiritual plants. It's nothing. Hee hee. Heavenly Demon Sect, I really want to see what kind of sect you are. Xiaohua secretly schemed against the Heavenly Demon Sect and Zhang Qishao. And Zhang Qishao? At this time, in a bustling town, a handsome young man in a brocade robe was sitting in a tea house. He was looking at the people coming and going on the street with interest as he tasted the fragrant tea in front of him that was emitting a mist. Who else could it be but Zhang Qishao? Qin Xiao, why are you sitting here in a daze? A series of light footsteps sounded from the stairs, followed by a concerned and soft voice. What's there to see here? You should be spending your precious time on cultivation. Otherwise, when would you be able to cultivate to the nascent soul stage? When will you be able to take your revenge? The corners of Zhang Qingxiao's mouth curled into a smile as an incomparable allure flashed from her eyes. Below the tea house, a group of women who were originally walking peacefully suddenly seemed to have sensed something. Many of them abruptly raised their heads in an attempt to capture the source of this allure. Unfortunately, what they saw was only a lonely back. The face that could bewitch all living things had already turned towards the female cultivator who had appeared from the stairs. Yu Tong, you're here? Zhang Qishao stood up with a smile and walked to the stairs. She stretched out her hand and said, Come and try the fragrant tea of this tea house. It's really beyond my expectations. There's actually a fragrant tea in the mortal world that can compare with spirit tea. Furthermore, this fragrant tea actually has a kind of astringency that spirit tea doesn't have. The female cultivator who had walked up to the tea house was actually the sword cultivator who had been missing for a long time, Zhang Yutong. Seeing Zhang Qingxiao's outstretched hand, Zhang Yutong didn't seem to be shy at all. She stretched out her own hand and looked around with a smile. You really know how to enjoy life. You actually chased away all the customers in the tea house and enjoyed it alone. Hee hee, how can those mortals compare to you? Such a beautiful scene should be accompanied by a beautiful woman. We definitely can't let filthy things spoil our fun. Zhang Yutong enjoyed these words very much and pursed her lips into a smile. I can't win against you in an argument. I might as well not say it. If you're having a hard time cultivating, it's fine to take a break for a while. Come, Yutong, sit here. Zhang Qishao pulled Zhang Yutong's hand and had her sit next to her. She personally poured a cup of tea and gave it to Zhang Yutong. She then pointed at the street below the tea house and said, Drink this tea first and look at the people below. Tell me what you see. Zhang Yutong seemed to be obedient to Zhang Qishao. She looked at Zhang Qishao affectionately and obediently drank a mouthful. Then she closed her eyes slightly as if tasting the bitterness in the tea. She then opened her eyes again and stared at the people on the street. After a long time, Zhang Yutong was puzzled. She turned back and said, Qishao, what's there to see? They're just a bunch of mortals. They're like ants in the eyes of us cultivators. In the eyes of your heavenly demon sect, they're even worse than pigs and dogs. Ha ha, Yutong, you're wrong. Zhang Qishao waved her hand and said mysteriously, Although they're mortals, what kind of people are the most common in the entire Dawn Rain continent? It's them. We cultivators also come from them. Just look at their faces, and you'll know what they're feeling and what they've been through. Cultivators like us need to cultivate and experience. But where do we get our state of mind and Tao attainment? Generally speaking, one has to come out from the sharpening of one's mind. Generally speaking, one has to throw oneself into this tainted mortal world. Only then can one stand out and emerge clean. Wonderful. Qi Xiao, I didn't quite understand before. In the Dao sect, we cultivate the 1,000 layers of mortal qi. In the sword cultivation, we cut through the worries of the mortal world. Now that you've said it, I've been enlightened. Zhang Yutong was shocked and said happily, "No wonder your cultivation improved so quickly. Your talent is really something I can't compare to." Not at all. There was not the slightest complacency on Zhang Qingxiao's face. She only smiled and said, "I just happened to see such a laborious mortal in the world. Thinking about their lives and then thinking about our cultivation, I was slightly touched. As for the speed of my cultivation, isn't it all because you let me practice with your own understanding and some of your books? That's why I've gained so much." Zhang Yutong blushed. She obviously liked Zhang Qingxiao's words. She replied, "Aren't I repaying you? If you didn't take the risk and fight with your heavenly demon sect master for the task of looking after me, and even use your life as a guarantee, I wouldn't be so free. Would I be able to continue cultivating by your side? Even if you came out this time, you could still bring me out. I wouldn't have to be trapped in a secluded place. What's more, those books of mine are nothing. With your beauty, you'll be the best in any sect. Furthermore, for the sake of your master, your senior martial brother, and for the sake of taking revenge for you, I am willing to tell you everything I know." -8. Chapter 2032. Thank you, Yutong. With your help, I believe that I will be able to kill those nascent soul cultivators. I will let my master and senior brother smile in the underworld. Zhang Qixiao held Zhang Yutong's hand and said sincerely. Sigh. Zhang Yutong didn't pull her hand away. She looked at the people below the tea house and sighed. These ordinary people don't have a trace of magic power or cultivation, and they don't have a long lifespan. But they have no grudges, no vendetta, and no separation of father and daughter. We see them as sad, but they feel that they are very happy. If we look at it from this level, we can't compare to them. Back then, you enjoyed the kinship of your sect. Now you are willing to risk everything to take revenge for that kinship. What about me? Now I know how precious kinship is. Yutong! Zhang Qixiao held Zhang Yutong's hand and smiled. Don't be anxious. Sect Master probably has some arrangements. Since he doesn't want your life like before, you can live. Since you've survived, you'll still be able to see your teacher and your sister. It's only a matter of time. I think you should cultivate well and master the great yin-yang six-direction sword spirit. If you see Zhang Yuhe in the future, you should give her a big surprise. Okay, Zhang Yutong smiled with satisfaction and said softly. Previously, I was obsessed with the way of the sword and only believed that the sword could sever the threads of love. But after meeting you, I know why I came to the Three Kingdoms. It's not for the way of the sword or the sword spirit, it's just to be able to meet you. Now, to be honest, I don't hate your sect master. If it wasn't for him, how could I know you? I think so too. To be able to meet you is a gift from the heavens. Zhang Qixiao nodded and agreed. Then she said, My sect master is also a person with a hard life. He seems to have a lot of things that he can't help but do. By the way, Qi Xiao, is there any news about Yuhe? Is there any news about the sword cultivators of the Huan Kingdom? Zhang Yutong asked again. I haven't been back for so many years. The Huan sword sect can have no news. Oh, Qin Xiao, don't say anything if it's difficult. I'm just worried about my sister. Zhang Qixiao thought for a moment and stared at Zhang Yutong. Actually, I didn't want to tell you because I was afraid it would affect your cultivation. Ah? What's wrong? Zhang Yutong was nervous. Zhang Yuhe did not return to the Huan sword sect, and the Huan sword sect also sent 2 sword cultivators. One is called Duan Yeming, and the other is called Wang Xiao. They came to Meng country to look for the 2 of you. Zhang Yutong smiled bitterly. Your heavenly demon sect is really powerful. I didn't even know that I was still in Meng Kingdom all these years, so how could they find me? Moreover, where did you go? Did your heavenly demon sect? When Zhang Qishao heard this, she hurriedly waved her hand and said, Yutong, don't worry about this. I've already asked the sect master. He absolutely didn't send anyone to capture Zhang Yuha. Besides, the sect master's intention was to incite a conflict between the Dao sect and the sword cultivators. How could he possibly place all the blame on the heavenly demon sect? Your sect master is a little delusional, Zhang Yutong said bluntly. How could the conflict between the sword cultivators and the Dao sect be so easily incited? A few years ago, I told you about the sword cultivators and the Tai Bai sect's Taoist bright sword. Isn't that a good example? Senior Li Xiubai died in Ming country without knowing why, but the flame bamboo sword sect didn't mention anything about it. Sigh, I'd rather let the sword cultivators attack the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. That way, my blood feud can be avenged in the fastest way. Zhang Qishao sighed. It's okay, Qishao. Even if the sword cultivators don't fight with the Dao sect, as long as you cultivate well, there's still me. I'll also master the great yin-yang 6 directions sword spirit as soon as possible. Call Yuha too. When the 3 of us are pregnant, we'll go with you to take revenge. Zhang Yutong held Zhang Qingxiao's hand and said with concern. And if the Dao sect and the sword cultivators fight, who knows how many people will die? How many people die every year when the sword cultivators fight with millions of Ming mountains? But that's different, Zhang Yutong retorted. If the sword cultivators don't stop the soul cultivators, not only the Huan country, but even the 3 kingdoms of cultivation will have more people dying. Sai Yutong, didn't you say before that the sword cultivators will always fight? The sword cultivators and the Dao sect will always have disputes. The sect master's arrangement is just one step ahead. Zhang Qishao was about to say something when she heard a cough coming from the stairs. Zhang Qishao looked up and said to Zhang Yutong, Forget it. It's not easy for you and me to come out. Let's not talk about those boring things. Okay, I know. Zhang Yutong nodded knowingly. She also looked at the stairs and said, I'll leave first. Go on with your work. Then, Zhang Yutong quickly walked down the stairs. A short foundation establishment cultivator with a thin face came up the stairs. It was Lonely Sexy Meng. Meng stared at Zhang Yutong, making Zhang Yutong's hair stand on end. Zhang Yutong's cultivation was not much worse than Meng's, but she still lowered her head and quickly walked down the stairs with a red face. Hee hee. When Zhang Yutong was far away, Meng walked up to Zhang Qishao and said with a smile, Sect Master Zhang, oh Sect Master Zhang, this old man really admires you. This female sword cultivator is your enemy. She was captured by you with your own hands. She should have a deep-seated hatred for you. Who knew that she would actually have such deep feelings for you? From the looks of it, even if you killed your way to the Huan sword sect, she would still clean your sword for you. Hee hee. Zhang Qishao was not at all bothered by Meng's lack of respect. She only smiled and said, How can this Zhang's actions be compared to Vice Alliance Master Yin's plan? Vice Sect Master Yin is shouldering the hopes of the devil cultivators over there. Alas, speaking of this Yin is really ashamed. This time I went out to search for the whereabouts of that thing, but I still didn't find anything special. Although Meng was ashamed, he didn't mean to be ashamed. He sat down and ignored Zhang Qishao. He raised his hand to pick up the teapot and poured a cup of tea. However, just as the tea entered his mouth, he spat it out again with a pu sound. He frowned and said, Sect Master Zhang, what kind of tea is this? It's so bitter, is it for humans to drink? Oh, Vice Sect Master Yin, Zhang Qishao said with a smile. This is tea used by mortals. How can it be compared to the spiritual tea that Vice Sect Master normally uses? No wonder. Vice Sect Master Yin, this Sect Master is a little puzzled. I wonder what Vice Sect Master has been looking for all these years? It's so mysterious that even with Vice Sect Master Yin's ability, you can't find it? Zhang Qishao asked with interest. Hee hee, this thing. I'm afraid Sect Master Zhang has never heard of it. Even if this old man said it, it would be useless. Yin Meng replied with a smile. Zhang Qingxiao's expression didn't change at all as he said, Vice Sect Master Yin, why don't you tell me? Perhaps this sect master has some good ideas? Yin Meng pondered for a moment and nodded. Forget it. Since this old man is going to represent the demonic cultivators of the Cultivation Alliance to cooperate with the Heavenly Demon Sect, I can't let Sect Master Zhang know about this. Then this old man will tell Sect Master Zhang about it. This Sect Master is all ears. Zhang Qingxiao's face revealed a thirst for knowledge, while Yin Meng's face was filled with disdain. After Yin Meng drank another cup of tea and felt that he had shown off enough, he smiled and said, I wonder if Sect Master Zhang has heard of the Grand Universe Teleportation Token? Ah? Zhang Qingxiao's eyes lit up as she said enviously. From what Vice Sect Master Yin is saying, the Grand Universe Shifting Token is a famous divine item from ancient times. Although I was born as an itinerant cultivator, I still know about it. Then he revealed a puzzled expression and asked, Could it be Vice Sect Master Yin is looking for this item? However, according to this sect master's knowledge, this item has long been lost on the Dawn Rain continent. Why are you looking for it? Haha, that's because Sect Master Zhang is ignorant and inexperienced. Yin Meng did not conceal his disdain for Zhang Qingxiao at this time and said with a smile, Sect Master Zhang is a rogue cultivator. Although you received the inheritance of my demon sect in the early years and secretly assisted Qing Fengmin of Heaven Forsaken, taking over the entire Heaven Forsaken after Qing Fengmin met with an accident, you have not been influenced by my orthodox demon sect master. In terms of knowledge, haha, it's indeed somewhat shallow. Zhang Qingxiao put on a rather ashamed look and said with a smile, It's exactly because I feel that I'm not capable enough that I invited Vice Suzerain Yin to be the Vice Suzerain of Heavenly Demonic Sect. He even gave me advice and suggestions to grasp the direction of Heavenly Demonic Sect. Alas, this is also because Sect Master Zhang's feelings are hard to refuse. Yin Meng sighed and said, Otherwise, with the current situation of Heavenly Demon Sect, this old man will definitely not get involved in this muddy water. Haha. Zhang Qingxiao smiled and did not say much. He asked again, Vice Sect Master Yin seems to have not said why you are looking for the Grand Universe Teleportation Token? Sect Master Zhang, you are wrong. It's not that it's impossible to use, it's definitely there. Yin Meng said proudly. That Grand Cosmos Shifting Token was originally this old man's possession. However, because this item was already damaged, this old man got someone to refine it, and there was a problem. That's why this item was accidentally missing. Ah? There was such a thing? Zhang Qingxiao was shocked and anxiously said, Vice Sect Master Yin, you are now my Heavenly Demon Sect's Vice Sect Master. This matter, you should at least let this Sect Master know about it, right? Haha, Sect Master Zhang misunderstood. This matter happened before this old man became the Vice Sect Master. It's not that this old man wants to hide it from the Sect Master. Yin Meng smiled. This Sect Master has admired the other demonic cultivators for a long time. Vice Sect Master Yin, please tell this Sect Master in detail. Zhang Qingxiao almost smiled apologetically. Haha, even if Sect Master Zhang didn't say it, this old man would have said it. This matter involves the cooperation between my Heavenly Demon Sect and the demonic cultivators of the Cultivation Alliance. In the future, this place will have to rely on Sect Master Zhang. Yin Meng smiled and said, Actually, it's very simple. There are indeed very few Grand Universe Teleportation Tokens left in my Dawn Rain continent. The demonic cultivators of the Cultivation Alliance only obtained a damaged one. To come from the Cultivation Alliance, one must use a long-distance transfer array. Without this Grand Universe Teleportation Token, even nascent soul and spirit-severing cultivators don't dare to use the transfer array. -8. Chapter 2033. If we fiendish cultivators want to cross the millions of soul cultivators in Ming Mountains and arrive at the Three Kingdoms, we can only rely on this Grand Universe Teleportation Token. Yin Meng explained. So I've been looking for this item for the past few years. Vice Sect Leader Yin, you used this Grand Universe teleportation token to come to Xi? Zhang Qixiao asked thoughtfully. This? Yin Meng's eyes turned slightly, and he hesitated for a moment before replying. Yes, but because there was a problem with the transportation array, the Grand Universe teleportation token was also damaged. Therefore, I have been working on this matter. Then, Zhang Qixiao asked again, but before he could finish, Yin Meng cut him off. I can't tell Sect Leader Zhang the location of the teleportation formation for the time being. Hee. Zhang Qixiao's expression changed slightly, but he immediately laughed. I'm not asking about that. I want to know why I haven't found it yet. Is there any place in the Three Kingdoms that my heavenly demon sect can't go? Hee. Sect Leader Zhang feels great. Yin Meng laughed. There are indeed many places that my heavenly demon sect can't reach. Could it be the 3 sects of Xi? The 4 sects of Meng? Zhang Qixiao asked curiously. That thing is so important, how could it fall into their hands? Yin Meng's face seemed to be slightly red as he answered. Just as Sect Leader Zhang said, I asked someone to refine and restore that thing, but something went wrong and it fell into the hands of a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. That disciple wasn't captured by my disciples at that time, and then, that disciple returned to the Imperial Thunder sect. Even though I had some backup plans, I couldn't succeed. There was a time when I almost met him, but because I didn't know his true face, I let him escape. Speaking of which, Sect Leader Zhang was also present that day. Imperial Thunder sect? Huh! Zhang Qixiao was extremely sensitive about the Imperial Thunder sect. When he heard this, he couldn't help but feel surprised. He had a hunch in his heart, but he still played dumb. It's related to me? I really didn't know. Sect Leader Zhang, did you forget? Yin Meng smiled and was about to speak when another voice came from the stairs. Sect Leader, there's an urgent message from Lord. Zhang Qixiao glanced at Yin Meng and said with a smile. Please wait a moment, Vice Sect Master Yin. Bring it up. Following Zhang Qixiao's instructions, a disciple quickly walked over with a blood-red messaging charm. Flying blood message? Yin Meng was also slightly taken aback when she saw this. She asked curiously, The Heavenly Demon Sect actually has someone who knows this kind of communication method from the Devil Realm? As he spoke, he waved his hand and forcefully took the communication talisman from the disciple's hand. Vice Sect Leader? That disciple was shocked. It's fine. Zhang Qixiao's face did not show any surprise at all. She waved her hand generously. You may leave. Vice Sect Leader Yin is the Vice Sect Leader of my Heavenly Demon Sect. Naturally, she has the right to look at the communication talisman. Yes, disciple understands. The disciple bowed his head and slowly retreated. Why is there nothing in this communication talisman? Yin Meng's demonic senses scanned the communication talisman and said strangely. Really? Zhang Qixiao was also stunned. She did not reach out her hand and asked, Which devil cultivator sent it? There's nothing in it. I can't tell. Yin Meng was a little embarrassed and handed the communication talisman to Zhang Qixiao. Zhang Qixiao frowned slightly. Without looking at it, she flicked her sleeve and hit the communication talisman. With a crack, the communication talisman was smashed into pieces. Since Vice Sect Leader Yin can't see anything, how can I see anything? I won't look at it. As Zhang Qixiao spoke, she narrowed her eyes slightly. However, in just a moment, a trace of shock flashed in her eyes. It was as if she couldn't believe it. It was also as if she was lamenting. Sect Leader Zhang is really big-hearted. Yin Meng was surprised by Zhang Qixiao's actions. He praised her and said, I was also impressed by Sect Leader Zhang's open-mindedness for the first time. I joined the Heavenly Demon Sect without hesitation. Yes, it was that time. Does Sect Leader Zhang still remember those disciples in Lingpei Mountain Villa who were not from the Lanli sect? Oh? Them? It seems to be 3 or 4 of them? Zhang Qixiao said thoughtfully. That day, Vice exhilarating had just revealed his demonic cultivation method. I didn't know if Vice exhilarator was a friend or foe, so I didn't dare to be careless. Since Vice exhilarator killed them, I naturally had to let them go. Could it be? It's that guy. Xiao Hua of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Yin Meng said regretfully. I didn't know at that time. I only found out later. Alas, fate really makes fools of people. So it was me who ruined Vice exhilarating's plan. Zhang Qishao was a little panicked. She raised her teacup and said embarrassedly, Let me toast Vice exhilarating as an apology. The ignorant are not guilty. Yin Meng smiled and raised his cup. I know that sect leader captured Xiao Hua and forced him to tell me the whereabouts of the Grand Universe Shifting Token. Alas, what a pity! Zhang Qingxiao's tone was filled with endless loneliness. I'm afraid Vice sect leader Yin will never find Xiao Hua. Ah? Why? He died? Yin Meng was shocked. Where did he die? Even if he died, his storage pouch must be found. There might be a Grand Universe Shifting Token inside. Xiao Hua died in Inkcloud Black Forest. Moreover, his corpse can't be found. Zhang Qishao waved her hand. A few disciples of my sect happened to be there. They sent news a few days ago. If Vice sect leadering didn't mention this, I wouldn't have known that Xiao Hua was so important. Xiao Hua died in Inkcloud Black Forest. Yin Meng was dumbstruck. He said in exasperation. Why did that guy go there for no reason? A little aura refining disciple really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Now that he's dead, what should I do? Sect leader Zhang, where is his specific location? Mo Bao. Zhang Qishao spread out her hands. Not to mention us, even if nascent soul cultivators died, it wouldn't be strange, right? Their corpses have long become Mo Bao's food, right? The things in their storage pouches became the prey of others several years later, right? Alas, if it were somewhere else, the storage pouches would be easy to deal with. Yin Meng was extremely regretful. He said dejectedly. But in Inkcloud Black Forest, storage pouches will corrode, and the things inside will be scattered in the Black Forest. How can I find them? If this matter is important, I can order my disciples to be careful in Inkcloud Black Forest in the future. Zhang Qishao said with a smile. What's the use of your aura-refining disciples? Yin Meng snorted. I have to go and see for myself. Fine. Zhang Qishao was not angry at all. She took out a jade slip, wrote something and handed it to Yin Meng. Although this location is at the edge of Inkcloud Black Forest, Vice sect leader Yin should still be careful. -8. Chapter 2034. All right, I'll take my leave. Yin Meng hurriedly bowed and quickly left the tea house. Zhang Qishao looked at Yin Meng's back and a faint sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Then, it was shrouded by sadness. He looked up at the gloomy sky where dusk was rising and half a red sun was hanging on the mountain top. Little junior brother, you still went. Sigh, you're just a little foundation establishment cultivator. Why did you go to Inkcloud Black Forest? Damn it, I only wanted to scheme against those two sword cultivators, you and the sword cultivator. Sigh, I know, isn't it your stupid flying sword? You want to get the sword spirit. You can tell me if you want it. I have the complete sword technique of the sword cultivator here. You can nurture the sword spirit again, you can even cultivate the flying sword again. Why did you have to go to Inkcloud Black Forest? Sigh, you're gone, you're going to leave so carefree in this world. There's only junior sister left. What's the point of me living? What's the use of me scheming against the demon cultivators, the Taoist sect and the sword cultivators? Even if I killed those 3 nascent soul cultivators, who would be able to laugh with me in the end? Little junior brother, why didn't you stay in the Imperial Thunder sect to cultivate properly? Why did you run out? The last time I saw you, you were still a chi refining level 12 disciple. Who would have thought that in just a few years, you've also built your foundation? Do you know how happy I was when I heard that you've built your foundation? Although I don't know if you have anything to do with Master and Senior Brother's death. But you're still my little junior brother. I'd rather believe that you're innocent. Do you know how upset I am now? I only have you as my little junior brother in this life. There will definitely be no Shang Huaming in the future, and there will definitely be no junior brother. I was still thinking, the next time I see you, I'll scare you and let you see my cultivation. Do you know? Little junior brother, I'm now in the late stage of foundation establishment. I'll be able to condense my course soon. I was actually a peak late stage golden core cultivator in my previous life. I never thought that on the day I met you, that bullshit condensed knowledge treasure was actually refined by me in my previous life. As she spoke, Zhang Qishao casually stretched her back. Her cultivation at the peak of the late foundation establishment stage was comparable to an early golden core cultivator. I've prepared a lot of good things for you. I also want you to quickly build your foundation. Zhang Qishao retracted her arm and withdrew her aura. She was once again a simple mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Apart from junior sister in the 100 Herbs sect, Shang Huaming only has you and me left. Who else can I dote on if not you? Little junior brother you, what should I say to you? Even if you've built your foundation, it's nothing in my eyes. I have 10,000 ways to make you steadily improve. But you were actually killed by Dowmaster Bright Sword's flying sword. I can't save you even if I want to. From now on, I will be the only one in this world who will avenge Master and Big Senior Brother. I will also be the only one who knows the true reason behind Shang Huaming's destruction. I can't accept this. Zhang Qishao thought and muttered. Her eyes were filled with endless loneliness as she looked at the setting sun. It was as if there was only loneliness in the entire world. Although Zhang Qishao had unfathomable devil cultivation secret techniques, and could quickly obtain news about Xiaohua with Zhang Jihao's clone, she still couldn't know that the grieving Xiaohua had already flown to the front of Haoming City. She stopped in midair and carefully observed the entire city. Senior! A voice sounded in front of Xiaohua. It was a cultivator wearing the armor of Haoming City's city guard. Xiaohua raised his head and looked at the city guard. The city guard hurriedly saluted. May I know how I can be of service to Senior? Is that so? Xiaohua smiled. This was the first time he had entered the 7 major cities of the state of Xi and received such a high level of courtesy. Yes, the auction in this city is about to begin. The city lord is afraid that seniors who come from afar don't know the rules of our Haoming City, so he specially sent us here to wait. We will welcome any seniors who are above the foundation establishment realm at any time. The city guard replied respectfully. Well, okay. Let's talk about the rules of Haoming City first. This is also my first time here, so I don't want to offend Dowmaster Yao Hong, Xiaohua said with a smile. Okay. The city guard also smiled. An approachable cultivator like Senior won't defend our Haoming City. Then, the city guard briefly explained the taboos of Haoming City and said, Senior, as long as you don't kill ordinary people and don't attack at will in Haoming City, these taboos are nothing. However, Xiaohua frowned. You mean, in Haoming City, cultivators of different realms have fixed areas of activity? Cultivators of lower realms can't cross the boundary without the permission of cultivators of higher realms? Otherwise, if they are killed, won't your Haoming City take responsibility? Yes, Senior. In Haoming City, we, the city guards, naturally have to ensure the safety of all cultivators. However, if those low-level cultivators cross the bottom line of our Haoming City and offend high-level cultivators, our Haoming City naturally can't guarantee the safety of such cultivators. The city guard answered patiently. Moreover, according to the number of cultivators in our Haoming City, the designated area of activity is sufficient. If someone crosses the boundary, it must be intentional. Well, what about the ordinary people in Haoming City? Xiaohua asked thoughtfully. Senior, you should know that those ordinary people are just doing things that we cultivators don't want to do, such as earning some hard-earned spirit stones. It's impossible for them to affect any cultivators. Such people are not few in our Haoming City. We naturally have to protect them from the harassment of unscrupulous cultivators. That's right. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, From this, we can see down Master Yao Hong's generosity. I agree very much. Thank you for your understanding, Senior. The city guard smiled apologetically. Senior, if you want to lodge a complaint, you have to look for it yourself. If there really isn't one, you can find a city guard like me for help. The city guards and I are very happy to serve, Senior. Well said. Xiaohua nodded. After thinking for a moment, he asked, I want to send a message to a fellow Taoist. She's an Qi refinement disciple, but she should be with a nascent soul cultivator. Can I just send a communication talisman directly? Yes, there's no restriction on communication talismans in Haoming City. As long as there's a response from a nascent soul cultivator, Senior can go to their area. The city guard said with a smile. Xiaohua smiled. He clapped his hand and took out a communication talisman. Under the urging of magic power, a red brilliance flashed and flew out of Xiaohua's hand. Unfortunately, what made Xiaohua slightly stunned was that the communication talisman didn't fly directly to the top of Haoming City. Instead, it turned in midair and flew directly behind Xiaohua. Oh? Why did it leave the city? Xiaohua's expression changed slightly. Could it be that something happened? Then, he cupped his hands slightly towards the city guard and flew out of the city. The city guard didn't think it was strange and went to another place to welcome other cultivators. Senior Marshal Brother. Xiaohua flew a distance away. When his divine sense passed by, a smile appeared on his face. At the same time, Shue's voice came again. Unexpectedly, Shue's face was a little thin. She left the two people behind her far away and flew towards Xiaohua. Shue. Xiaohua was delighted and reached out his hand with a smile. There were still some cultivators nearby. Shue didn't have the nerve to rush into Xiaohua's arms. She only reached out her hand and impatiently held it, as if only the warmth in Xiaohua's hand could make her feel at ease. Why did you come so late? Shue's heart was calm. She looked into Xiaohua's eyes and asked with concern. I thought you'd be able to catch up to me in a dozen or so days at most. Who knew that it would take you almost a year? Didn't I say I'd give you a surprise? Xiaohua said with a smile. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. I finally have the face to come back and see you. This concubine said before, this concubine doesn't want any surprises. This concubine only wants you to stay by this concubine's side. Shue said tenderly. She didn't care about Xiaohua's so-called surprise at all and didn't ask a single word. Just as Xiaohua was about to explain, he suddenly felt a strange gaze shooting at him from the side. This gaze was not the kind of bone-deep hatred, but it was a kind of faint hostility, a kind of slight disdain, which Xiaohua was very sensitive to, and he was able to detect it. Who is it? Xiaohua raised his sword-like eyebrows and looked in that direction. Sure enough, it was the two people who came with Shue. One of them was the ugly Huafurong. At this time, Huafurong was very tactful and kept a distance of more than 10 zhang from Xiaohua. Beside her, there was a male cultivator who looked very similar to her. His cultivation was around the middle stage of foundation establishment. A pair of big and small eyes stared straight at Xiaohua. This gaze seemed to be spitting fire and full of jealousy. Huh! What's going on? Xiaohua was slightly stunned. He turned his head and whispered to Shue. Is this male cultivator Huafurong's brother? Shue's face was somewhat unnatural. She nodded and said, Yes, this male cultivator is called Fire Qilin. He's Huafurong's cousin. Fire Qilin? He has the nerve to call himself Fire Qilin with that appearance? Xiaohua almost laughed out loud. And when I saw him for the first time that day, I was also this surprised. Shue pursed her lips and smiled. However, this person's character can be considered good, even somewhat refined. He's somewhat similar to the so-called Confucian cultivators. Why is he looking at me like that? Xiaohua whispered. I don't seem to owe him any spirit stones, right? This? Shue was somewhat embarrassed. This guy seems to be a little, Xiaohua was really stunned. Damn it, when I'm with you, I feel like I'm a flower stuck in cow dung. If this guy, then wouldn't he be? I really can't compare. Fire Qilin has a lot of etiquette. He only expressed some goodwill and didn't say anything. However, he's a Foundation establishment senior. I also vaguely told Huafeng some things. Presumably, he should be aware of it. Shui Shui whispered. His cultivation is higher than yours. Don't cause trouble. -8. Chapter 2035. However, Shui Shui covered her mouth again. Although Xiaohua's cultivation was at the early stage of Foundation establishment, his strength seemed to be higher than Xiangyang, who was at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. He shouldn't be afraid of the Fire Qilin. Therefore, she hurriedly said, their great-grandfathers are the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. They're all early-stage nascent soul cultivators. We can't afford to offend them. Hee, I understand. Xiaohua transmitted his voice. Then, he let go of Shui Shui's hand and turned to look at Huafeng. When Huafeng saw Xiaohua looking at her, she glanced at the Fire Qilin from the side and sighed slightly. Cousin, let's go. This is Xiaohua, my sister's savior. Don't embarrass him. And the Fire Qilin nodded and said seriously, who is your cousin? How can I lower myself to his level? Okay. Huafeng agreed and flew to Xiaohua. She cupped her hands and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, we finally meet again. Your junior sister has been worried about you for the past dozens of days. Every day, she asked me to accompany her outside Bright City to wait for you. She's really affectionate. Xiaohua didn't dare to neglect, and also cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist Hua, thank you for bringing my junior sister to Bright City. Thank you for taking care of her for the past year. Don't mention it. I want to thank fellow Taoist Xiao even more. I dare not take credit for this. Huafeng smiled and pointed. This is my cousin, Fire Qilin. He's also a famous cultivator of Ardent Fire Mountain. I am Xiaohua, a disciple of Imperial Thunder Sect. Greetings, fellow Taoist Hua. Xiaohua cupped his hands and greeted. The Fire Qilin was also polite and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed a talent. I'm envious. Moreover, my junior sister is indebted to fellow Taoist Xiao for saving her. Everyone in Ardent Fire Mountain is grateful to fellow Taoist Xiao. I dare not take credit for this. It's just a matter of convenience, Xiaohua said modestly. The Fire Qilin turned to Shui Shui and said, fellow Taoist Shui, since we've received your senior brother, let's return to our residence in Bright City. We still have to pay our respects to our 3 great-grandfathers. Shui Shui shook her head without hesitation and said, thank you for your kind intentions, fellow Taoist Hua. Since my senior brother is here, I won't go to the residence of Ardent Fire Mountain. I hope that fellow Taoist Hua can apologize to the 3 seniors. Oh, you're not coming with us? The Fire Qilin was somewhat disappointed and said, my Ardent Inferno Mountain's residence is filled with world spirit qi. It's a good place to cultivate. No need. Shui Shui shook her head again. Seeing this, Huafeng quickly smiled and said, since fellow Taoist Xiao has come, then little sister Shui will naturally follow fellow Taoist Xiao. However, fellow Taoist Xiao, my 3 great-grandfathers have always wanted to see you so that I can thank you for saving my life. If fellow Taoist Xiao has found a place to stay, please send me a message through your communication talisman. Xiaohua could ignore the Fire Qilin, but he couldn't ignore the 3 nascent soul cultivators of the Ardent Fire Mountain range. Since Huafeng said so, Xiaohua had no choice but to nod and say, sure. After I find a place to stay in Haoming City, I'll immediately send a messaging talisman to fellow Taoist Hua. I also really want to pay a visit to the 3 nascent soul seniors. The Fire Qilin nodded and said, all right, since that's the case, I'll first accompany fellow Taoist Shui to find the city guards of Haoming City and help fellow Taoist Shui find an excellent place to stay. Xiaohua smiled and said, there's no need to trouble fellow Taoist Hua. I can find the city guards of Haoming City myself. Unexpectedly, The fire Qilin ignored Xiaohua and only looked at Shui Shui. Shui Shui was helpless and could only shake her head and say, "Fellow Daoist, please return. I'll let senior brother arrange my residence." "Oh, so it's like that. Then I'm a little worried." The fire Qilin hesitated and said, "I'll only be at ease if I help you do it." Hee. Xiaohua finally understood what Shui Shui meant when she said that the fire Qilin was full of etiquette. He clearly didn't understand the ways of the world. He and Shui Shui had already clearly rejected him, but he didn't seem to understand and was blindly flattering. "Cousin!" Hua Furong's face was somewhat embarrassed. She pulled the fire Qilin's sleeve and said, "Fellow Daoist Shui, fellow Daoist Xiao can arrange it. You don't have to worry. It's already late. You and I had better hurry back to pay our respects to our great-grandfathers." "Yes, I know." The fire Qilin's face turned cold as he answered. He then said to Shui Shui, "Fellow Daoist Shui, when you find a residence, you must send me a communication talisman." And Shui Shui was obviously non-committal. However, the fire Qilin thought that Shui Shui had agreed. He beamed with joy and actually urged Hua Furong to return earlier. Hua Furong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She cupped her hands towards Xiaohua and Shui Shui and urged her figure to fly away together with the fire Qilin. "Damn, this fire Qilin is really somewhat interesting." Xiaohua scratched his head, very speechless. Hee, the fire Qilin is a good person, but he's just a little pedantic." Shui Shui also pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Let's go. Don't worry about others." Xiaohua pulled Shui Shui's hand and said, "After we find a residence, let's do something that this guy can't even dream of." "Bah!" Shui Shui spat lightly, but there was a smile on her face, and her eyebrows were rippling with spring. There were many abodes on the mountain range of Humming City, and they were divided into different layers of the mountain range. Even the abodes that Foundation establishment cultivators could live in were of different sizes, and the concentration of heaven and earth's spiritual chi was also different. Each abode had different spirit stones to pay according to the specific conditions. If a cultivator had a more special need, as long as they could pay the spirit stones, Humming City would provide special things for the cultivator in the abode. Xiaohua was different from before. There were many spirit stones in the space, so he found an abode with rich heaven and earth's spiritual chi and an alchemy room among the abodes that Foundation establishment cultivators had the right to live in on the second layer. After handing over the spirit stones to the city guard and receiving the magic tablet and jade slip, Xiaohua was not in the mood to stroll around Humming City. He immediately took Shui Shui's hand and flew to the abode he chose according to the direction indicated on the jade slip, doing something that fire Qilin couldn't even dream of. Xiaohua couldn't wait to activate the magic tablet and rushed into the abode while holding Shui Shui's hand. Shui Shui's face was still red. She also missed Xiaohua very much and longed for Xiaohua's warmth, but looking at Xiaohua's anxious appearance, she was a little embarrassed. She was even thinking about what she should do if Xiaohua did something special. Should she refuse? Should she cater to him? Or should she compromise? However, when Shui Shui was hesitating, she was dumbfounded when she saw Xiaohua's real action. "What? Husband, you actually know alchemy? You also got the heavenly ingress?" Shui Shui was flabbergasted as she watched Xiaohua take out the three-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace. Then, he skillfully turned on the earth fire in the alchemy room and took out the sky-in grass from the space as if he was presenting a treasure. Shui Shui couldn't even dream of it. Could you, fire Qilin, dream of it? -8. Chapter 2036. Hee, more than that? Xiaohua looked at Shui Shui's surprise and ecstasy. He felt that his life and death in the ink cloud black forest was worth it. He patted his forehead and smiled. "Look at your husband's cultivation." "Ah? Husband, you're already at the middle stage of Foundation establishment?" Shui Shui really didn't dare to imagine. She came out with Xiaohua, but they were both at the 12th level of qi refining. Just as they arrived at the flame forest marsh, Xiaohua unexpectedly entered the early stage of foundation establishment. Moreover, he broke the blood seal set by the male thunder beast and saved Xianyang and Zhuqingyuan. Then, Xiaohua showed his prowess at Tianmen Mountain and saved the bloodline of Tianmen Mountain. Then, he concentrated on the formation and helped Tianmen Mountain set up the formation. Shui saw clearly that Xiaohua didn't seem to cultivate much. Moreover, since they parted ways at Tianmen Mountain, it was less than a year. Even if 1 year at the Flame Forest Marsh and 3 years at Tianmen Mountain were added, it was less than 5 years. In just 5 years, Xiaohua actually directly jumped from the early stage of foundation establishment to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Is this still the Xiaohua who failed to build his foundation and failed to build his foundation after more than 10 years? What's wrong? My wife, are you shocked? Xiaohua smiled proudly. Your husband wanted to give you a surprise, but I didn't expect this surprise to be a bit big. Shui's eyes flashed with surprise, but then there was a trace of shadow. She forced a smile and said, Yes, this surprise is really big. So big that I didn't expect it even in my dreams. Immediately, Shui hid her gloominess and showed a bright smile. She pointed at the heavenly ingrass and said, Husband left me, could it be for this heavenly ingrass? This heavenly ingrass is a rare thing in the world, where did husband get it? Speaking of which, the story is really long. Xiaohua said with a smile. Your husband will heat up this pill furnace and take a good look at the pill formula for refining Linglei pill. Then I'll slowly tell you. Okay, I'll listen to husband's instructions. Shui was very sweet. Her 2 limpid eyes seemed to stick to Xiaohua. Xiaohua cast a few spells that Shui didn't seem to recognize on the earth fire. The earth fire burned fiercely and wrapped around the 3-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace. It slowly warmed up. Then, he took the jade slip from Shui and read it carefully. Shui looked at the cauldron warmed by the earth fire, feeling a little confused. Although Shui didn't know how to refine pills, she had heard her master talk about it before. She had even dabbled in the teachings of the Thunderstorm Palace. Shui. It wasn't that her heart was far away, but that her cultivation was too far away. It was so far away that she felt a sense of fear. It's done. Xiaohua took out his divine sense from the jade slip and said with a smile, Your husband looked at it again. It's more or less correct. Once the pill furnace is warmed up, your husband can refine Linglei pill for you. Husband, why don't you make a copy too? Shui hid her gloominess and said with a smile, Husband took a copy and can look at it any time. It's inconvenient for me to give it to you. Xiaohua scratched his head and said with a smile, There's no need. This is Shui family's secret. Your husband better not take it. Isn't Shui family your family? Shui pursed her lips and said with a smile, Won't it be Xiao families in the future? That's right. How could your husband forget? Xiaohua saw Shui's seductive appearance and his heart itched. He reached out and hugged Shui's plump body. He buried his mouth and nose in her chest, greedily inhaling that enchanting smell. Shui was also moved. She reached out and hugged Xiaohua's neck. The two were affectionate for a long time. Only then did Shui ask while gasping for breath, Husband Xiao, I feel very guilty. For me. I'm afraid you risked your life to pick the heavenly ingrass, right? Not at all. Xiaohua said with a smile. Speaking of which, there's a story. Moreover, your husband also obtained a lot of benefits from it. Then, Xiaohua casually told the story of Embark Black Forest. Finally, he said, Look, didn't your husband come back in one piece? Moreover, my cultivation has improved greatly. Hearing that Shui met Bao of Embark Black Forest, Shui's face was already pale. She was clear about the dangers of Embark Black Forest. That Bao was the nightmare of all cultivators. Xiaohua actually received the help of the heavens, and his cultivation improved greatly because of it. Although it was said that he was lucky, there were countless difficulties and endless love for her. If it wasn't for her own foundation, would Xiaohua take such a risk? Although Xiaohua didn't say anything else, Shui easily thought of the other difficulties Xiaohua encountered. Husband! Shui couldn't help but hug Xiaohua again. Her cherry lips slightly opened, and she kissed him. You really have to pay to reap the rewards. Xiaohua didn't forget to sigh while enjoying himself. After a while, Xiaohua thought of something again. He took out a jade slip from his bosom, immersed his divine sense in it, and wrote something in it. He handed it to Shui and said, Wife, your ancestral jade slip has recorded that even if you take the thunder pill, when awakening the thunder beast's bloodline or building the foundation, there is still the danger of true qi breaking through the meridians. Your husband happens to have a special cultivation method here that can refine the meridians. You can start cultivating now. I hope it will be useful when the time comes. Shui was stunned again. She also knew that this kind of cultivation method that could refine the meridians was definitely a secret of a cultivation sect. Moreover, the scale of this sect was definitely not inferior to the thunder-controlling sect. However, now she was already used to Xiaohua's magical powers. She reached out and took it, and only smiled slightly and said, Husband is considerate. Immediately, she immersed her divine sense in the jade slip and looked at the most simple and most basic dragon transformation secret art in it. Xiaohua looked at Shui's serious look, and the corner of his mouth smiled. This cultivation method was even more shallow than the one he gave Xiao Mao. After all, Shui was about to build the foundation. It was too complicated, and she might not be able to comprehend it, let alone cultivate it. Immediately, Xiaohua didn't waste time. He looked at the heat of the pill furnace, clapped his hands, and took out the corpses of the two thunder beasts. He made a gesture, took some things needed for the thunder pill from the corpses, and threw them into the pill furnace. After those things melted, he took some auxiliary spiritual herbs from the space and threw them in one by one. Then, he looked at Shui, who was meditating with her eyes closed. He rubbed his hands, and 2 wisps of Samadhi true fire flew into the earth fire. In an instant, the entire earth fire turned light purple, and within that light purple, there was a trace of crimson red. Seeing that the various spiritual herbs in the pill furnace began to melt, and impurities were extracted from the liquid, Xiaohua's face showed a dignified look. He waved his hand and took out 2 jade bottles from the space. These 2 jade bottles contained the blood of the 2 thunder beasts. After being processed by Zhuqingyuan, they were put into the jade bottles. However, the blood of the thunder beasts used to refine the thunder pill was not simple primitive blood, but the true blood of the blood. Only this kind of true blood could stimulate the true blood in Shui's blood. Only the true blood of the thunder beasts, which was divided into yin and yang attributes, could be adjusted by the heavenly yin grass. Xiaohua closed his eyes, and very carefully meditated on the method to extract the true blood. Then, with a wave of his hand, he opened the seal on one of the jade bottles, and a ball of blood the size of a fist flew into the air. This ball of blood was very ordinary, and there was nothing special about it. However, with Xiaohua's different methods, the entire ball of blood began to boil, like boiling water. Bubbles continuously rushed out from the ball of blood. When the bubbles disappeared, the ball of blood had shrunk by more than half. At this time, the ball of blood began to flicker with brilliance. In Xiaohua's Buddhist sense, this flickering brilliance was precisely the faint formation of hair-thin lightning within the ball of blood. Quick! Xiaohua chanted an incantation, and urged his magic power. A method that he had been forming for a long time struck the ball of blood. Following the incantation, strands of golden lightning were extracted from the ball of blood by Xiaohua, and like countless small fish in an oval space, they wantonly swam. These lightning strands seemed to want to break through the confinement of this oval space, and rush into the heavenly Tao. However, every time they came into contact with the restriction, they could only be slightly repelled by the restriction. They simply could not cross half a step. Rise! Xiaohua lightly reprimanded again. His hands were like plucking the strings of a zither, and small and delicate incantations struck the lightning strands. Those lightning strands in Xiaohua's hands were like dancing, gradually gathering together. In less than half a cup of tea's time, a small lightning beast shape was formed by the lightning strands. Great! Seeing this, Xiaohua was overjoyed. His forehead was almost covered in sweat. This extraction was far beyond his imagination. It was several times more complicated than when Xianyang took out the Tai green light rod from the Tai green light rod. If Xiaohua's magic power was not comparable to the middle Jindan stage, it might really be difficult. Go! Xiaohua knew that this was the final critical moment, and he did not dare to be careless. His hands moved nimbly again, faster than before, almost bringing along an afterimage. At this time, the place where he struck the incantation was no longer the ball of lightning strands, but the ball of blood again under Xiaohua's incantation. The ball of blood quickly shrank, and was soon compressed to the size of a thumb. Moreover, the ball of blood was still trembling, as if there was still room to shrink under Xiaohua's magic power. Pun! It seemed that Xiaohua lost control of his magic power, and the ball of blood suddenly exploded like a firework. However, Xiaohua's face did not have any depression, but instead showed a trace of joy. Xiaohua's eyes stared at the exploding ball of blood, and his hands quietly stopped in midair. The moment all the ball of blood began to fall, his right hand suddenly stretched out, 5 fingers stretched out, and stretched forward. It was precisely above the ball of blood, and then, with great difficulty, he lifted it up. As if he was carrying a heavy object, Xiaohua's hand actually sank slightly by an inch. -8. Chapter 2037. A strange thing happened. The falling droplets of blood froze in midair and began to tremble rapidly. Then, from each droplet of blood, a thread thinner than a hair was pulled out. As the blood thread was pulled out, the droplets of blood fell to the ground again. Xiaohua waved his left hand, and a wisp of true samadhi fire appeared. It surrounded the droplets of blood, and all of them were burned to ashes, falling to the ground. Xiaohua's right hand stretched out and then retracted, throwing it towards the lightning beast in the air that was formed by lightning threads. Go! Seeing the blood thread approaching the lightning thread, Xiaohua opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of true essence. The blood thread used the power of true essence to hit the lightning beast. Once it hit, the blood thread instantly wrapped around the lightning beast. Kacha! A soft sound of thunder suddenly echoed in midair. It hit the lightning beast that had already turned gold and red. Seeing the lightning beast's wings and the faint lightning thread mixed with the red blood thread, it really seemed like it was going to soar into the sky. Great! Xiaohua was overjoyed. He pointed at the 3-legged vermilion bird phoenix patterned furnace, and the lightning beast flew towards the furnace. In a moment, it entered the furnace. Ah, such a divine skill, husband! I can't compare! Shui Shui had opened her eyes at an unknown time. She looked at Xiaohua's technique and muttered, Hee, wife, with your husband working hard for you, you can just obediently wait to build your foundation, Xiaohua said with a smile. But at this moment, Xiaohua frowned. He looked at the entrance of the cave and said unhappily, This fire Qilin is a bit boring. Why did he come here to harass us again? Since we are hiding from him, he should understand. Hearing this, Shui Shui smiled bitterly. This person is a bit dull, even pedantic. If he wants to do something, even 9 heavenly dragons won't be able to pull him back. According to Huafeng, he is only a few years older than her, but he didn't like to cultivate when he was young. At the beginning, Huafeng was in the 5th layer of the aura refining realm, and he was still in the 1st layer. The 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain racked their brains, but he just ignored them and did his own thing. But later on, for some unknown reason, when Huafeng reached the 7th level of Qi refining, she suddenly came to a realization. As a result, her cultivation speed began to spiral out of control. Other than cultivating, she did nothing else. Lord Husband must have also seen it. Huafeng has only just entered the Foundation Establishment realm, while the Fire Qilin is already a mid-level Foundation Establishment realm existence. Speaking of this, Flaming Hibiscus also bitterly smiled. Actually, I've only seen him a few times, but he began to follow me. He didn't say anything and just looked at me. In the beginning, this concubine still nodded politely. Every time he saw this, he would be wild with joy. Later on, when this concubine understood what was going on, she no longer paid attention to him. But he is still pestering me, Shwe Shwe said embarrassedly. Husband, this concubine has never said a word to him. Every time, Hua Hibiscus was present. He, my wife, Xiaohua said with a smile. I didn't say anything. How could your husband not believe you? In this dawn rain continent, there are probably not many who can be more handsome than your husband. Saying this, Xiaohua flicked his hair, looking around with a narcissistic look. Pfft, Shwe Shwe laughed. Xiaohua said again. It's just that your husband is busy right now. I've just finished refining the male lightning beast's true blood, and I still need the female lightning beast's true blood. Only after these things are done can I go see the fire Qilin. Let this guy stand there first. Okay. Shwe Shwe smiled sweetly and went to comprehend the dragon transformation art. After waiting for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Xiaohua also successfully extracted the female lightning beast's true blood. Immediately, Xiaohua reached out his hand and took out the heavenly yin grass from the space. With a point of his finger, the stem of the heavenly yin grass was cut off from the root and thrown into the pill furnace. The roots of the heavenly yin grass were also thrown back into the space and let the puppet carefully plant it. Xiaohua actually wanted to cultivate the heavenly yin grass first, but he was afraid that something would go wrong and delay Shwe Shwe, so he left it behind and tried to plant it. When the stem of the heavenly yin grass fell into the pill furnace, under the tempering of the Samadhi true fire, it immediately turned into a spiritual liquid. This spiritual liquid was clearly different from the previous spiritual herbs. It actually had two colors, one was pure white, the other was fiery red, the same color as the yin and yang of the ink cloud black forest's secret area. These two colors were clearly separated and did not seem to mix with each other. Wonderful! Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the liquid. At the same time he praised in his heart, he also doubted whether he could grow the heavenly yin grass in his space. This kind of miraculous spiritual herb could only be grown in a special place. Go! Xiaohua rubbed his hands, and the two lightning beasts' true blood that had been spreading their wings and wanting to fly together were pushed into the pill furnace by Xiaohua. Immediately after, another hand seal was cast. However, he saw that the pill liquid in the pill furnace was pouring down onto the two true blood from top to bottom. The true blood actually softened once again and seeped into the pill liquid. As his divine sense swept through, the phantoms of the male and female lightning beasts spreading their wings in the pill liquid were vivid and lifelike. Good! Xiaohua praised himself first. He knew that even if the Linglei Dan could be formed, he would have to refine it again to quench the impurities in the elixir. In the end, he would be able to condense the true blood of the male and female lightning beasts together to form the Linglei Dan. Hearing Xiaohua's praise, Shwe Shwe opened her eyes again and said with a smile, How is it? Did it succeed? Xiaohua said with a smile. How can it be that simple? This Linglei pill probably needs to be refined for 81 days before it can be completed. Now, we've only done some superficial things. Fortunately, I heard from Master that the more precious a pill is, the longer it needs to be refined. The 81 days for the Linglei pill is not too long. Shwe Shwe nodded and said, Moreover, the auction in Haoming's city is also held during this period. We can kill two birds with one stone. That's right. Xiaohua nodded. He had some expectations in his heart. Yes, when Xiaohua was in the Qi refinement realm, he had always been using the fire marrow flame crystal and the Big Dipper divine fist to temper his bones. Every time he used the Big Dipper divine fist, there would always be a cold current tempering all the bones in his body inch by inch. However, ever since Xiaohua entered the Foundation establishment realm, or maybe after Xiaohua absorbed the fire origin, the Big Dipper divine fist's effect became increasingly small. Previously, Xiaohua did not care about it and thought that it was just a matter of cultivation. He did not practice it enough. However, after Emojao Black Forest, Xiaohua broke through to the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. His Dharma body, meridians, and cultivation technique were all profound, but in terms of tempering his bones, it was far inferior to the fire marrow flame crystal from before. During this period of time, Xiaohua had been pondering. It was only a few days ago that Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization. When he saw the light reverse flight's demonstration of the light evasion technique, the bone tempering he saw was not just a simple Big Dipper divine fist, but several different methods. Every method, the bones would change into a different color. In other words, each method could only be used for one color. At the Fire Origin stage, he used the Big Dipper divine fist, and after the Fire Origin, it should be the Earth Origin. At this stage, the Big Dipper divine fist should not be used anymore. Xiaohua must find another method to temper his bones. Otherwise, even if he used up all the Earth Crystal Yao milk, he would not be able to complete the second stage of tempering his bones. -8. Chapter 2038. Therefore, Xiaohua came to Haoming City to look for Xue Xue, and to take advantage of the Blazing Fire Mountain's 3 elders to enter a high-level auction to obtain a better bone-tempering method. However, could there be a bone-tempering method? Xiaohua really didn't know. There were many body-tempering cultivators in the Daybreak continent, and they all used body-tempering methods. Bone-tempering? Who would do that for no reason? Not using time on the Great Tao? However, Xiaohua knew his own matters. In essence, all of his cultivation was based on the space behind his head. Furthermore, the light reversal within the space was the most important. This light reversal should be his number one priority. Since there was only the cultivation method of the light evasion, he should first master the light evasion. He was no longer too worried about basic cultivation methods. His knowledge and experience had already far surpassed that of aura refining cultivators, and his cultivation level had also far surpassed that of foundation building cultivators of the same realm. Under these circumstances, it would be very easy for him to find cultivation methods to advance his cultivation. Spiritual plants, medicinal pills, and so on were even less of a concern to him. Buddhism, Confucianism, dragonization art, sword cultivation, phoenix battle body, and even soul cultivation, although they were all divine abilities comparable to Taoism, in Xiaohua's eyes, they couldn't compare to light escape. Of course, Xiaohua longed to try these divine abilities, but this would have to wait until he succeeded in using Master Bright Sword's Sword Heart Origin Seed's secret technique. Seeing that the pill furnace had already stabilized and the 3 medicinal liquids were arranged in a straight line, quietly tempering in the furnace fire, Xiaohua knew this stage would probably last for more than 10 days. Therefore, he set up a rabbit formation and concealed the entire pill furnace. Then, he followed Xue Xue to the front of the Immortal's cave. The front of the Immortal's cave was the reception area, and the space wasn't small. Xiaohua and Xue Xue came here and smiled at each other. They each found a praying mat and sat on it, cultivating without mentioning it. As for the fire Qilin outside the Immortal's cave, he waited for more than half a day. The summoning talisman he sent was right in front of him, but he didn't enter the cave at all. He knew in his heart that Xiaohua didn't welcome him, but he really didn't seem to be discouraged, as Xue Xue said. He even encouraged himself in his heart, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Female cultivators are all shy, and it's not easy to say something. An outstanding female cultivator like Xue Xue is even more so like this. If I leave now, how can I let her see my determination? When she left yesterday, didn't she still smile at me? Doesn't this mean that she has feelings for me? Although this Xiaohua is her senior martial brother, and can be considered to be in a favorable position, but I didn't know Xue Xue before, so I can't take the lead in her heart. But now that I know Xue Xue, I can't neglect her. I didn't appear before Xue Xue, but from now on, I will appear every day. I will definitely let her know who is the most suitable for her, who is the one who misses her the most." After waiting for more than 2 hours, Xiao Hua's divine sense swept out and saw that the fire qilin was still there. He couldn't help but frown. Facing such a strange person, Xiao Hua really didn't know how to deal with him. The fire qilin was a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator in name, and he was also a direct descendant of the 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain. It was impossible for him to casually kill him. At this moment, another person flew over from not far away. That person didn't wait for the entrance of the cave before shouting, "Oh, cousin, so you're here! Great-grandfather is looking for you. He's just short of sending you a messaging talisman." The person who had arrived was none other than Hua Ferong. "Oh, why is great-grandfather looking for me?" The fire qilin was puzzled. "I already paid my respects this morning, but I didn't see him say anything. You'd better go quickly." Hua Ferong curled her lips. "You'll be in trouble if he sends you a messaging talisman." "Oh, okay." The fire qilin seemed to be afraid of the 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain. It looked at Xiao Hua's cave with some reluctance before turning around and flying away. After the fire qilin was far away, Hua Ferong sighed and said loudly, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, little sister Shui, please open the cave. I have something to ask of you." Xiao Hua naturally heard her. He took out a magic tablet and opened the restriction, then he and Shui Shui went forward to welcome her. Hua Ferong cupped her hands from afar and said with an apologetic smile, "My cousin is always so reckless. I've let fellow Taoist Xiao see a joke." "Oh? Is that so? Where is fellow Taoist Hua?" Xiao Hua pretended to be surprised. Hua Ferong smiled and didn't mention the fire qilin again. After entering the cave and taking a seat, she said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, I came today to ask fellow Taoist Xiao to come to my ardent fire mountains cave tomorrow. The 3 elders are very concerned about fellow Taoist Xiao's kindness and want to thank you in person." When Xiao Hua heard this, he quickly waved his hand and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Hua is too polite. It was just a small matter that day. Anyone who saw the heavenly demon sex actions would have to intervene. I don't dare to take credit for it. Moreover, fellow Taoists Hua brought my junior sister to Haoming City and protected her safety. You've already repaid that so-called kindness. It's better not to mention this matter again." Then, he thought for a moment and said, "If fellow Taoist Hua feels that you owe me, you can just give me a passage talisman on the day of the auction." "That's natural," Hua Ferong said with a smile. "Since fellow Taoist Xiao has come to Haoming City, you can't not follow my ardent fire mountain to participate in the auction for nascent soul cultivators. That's a good opportunity to broaden your horizons. However, the auction for nascent soul cultivators doesn't need any passage talismans. Nascent soul cultivators can participate every day, and they can even bring in 5 disciples." "Oh, so it's like that." Xiao Hua scratched his head. It seemed that he had no choice but to pay a visit to the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. It seems that a nascent soul senior from the Imperial Thunder sect has also come. However, he's not near the Ardent Fire Mountain's abode. Hua Ferong suddenly thought of something and reminded, "If fellow Taoist Xiao has the time, shouldn't you also pay a visit?" I'm just a pawn of the Imperial Thunder sect. I'm afraid that a nascent soul senior wouldn't recognize me at all," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Although paying a visit is a kind of etiquette, I can't pay a visit without a nascent soul senior's permission, right? Since that's the case, I'd better not ask for a snub." That's exactly the case." Hua Ferong pursed her lips and said, "When my 3 great-grandfathers arrived at Haoming City, they sent one messaging talisman after another. To tell you the truth, fellow Taoist Xiao, my great-grandfathers didn't even look at a single one of them. They were all crushed by us for fun. Some aura-refining children even competed to see who could crush the most number of messaging talismans every day." Hua Ferong patted her hand and took out a palm-sized token from her storage pouch. She handed it over and said, "This is the token of my Ardent Fire Mountain. It was personally given to me by my second great-grandpa. Fellow Taoist Xiao, if you take it, you'll be able to pass through Haoming City without any obstructions." Looking at the flame-like token in front of him, Xiao Hua knew that this was the face of a nascent soul cultivator, so he definitely couldn't refuse. Thus, he reached out to take it and said with a smile, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Hua. Since fellow Taoist is so considerate, as a junior, it's only right for me to pay a visit to the seniors." Hua Furong was overjoyed and said, "Today, my Ardent Fire Mountain is holding a small banquet. If fellow Taoist Xiao has the time, can you go?" Xiao Hua glanced at Xue Xue. Xue Xue also smiled and said, "The 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain are famous nascent soul seniors in my state of Shi. I've always been following Big Sister Furong in Haoming City, but I haven't had the opportunity to meet the 3 seniors. Now is the perfect opportunity, so I also want to meet the 3 seniors." All right. Xiao Hua actually knew that the opportunity to meet nascent soul seniors was very important, especially if he could get some pointers. Even if it was casual, it would be of great benefit to his cultivation. Unfortunately, wasn't there a fire qilin here? Otherwise, Xiao Hua would have already gone without hesitation. Since he was willing to meet Xue Xue, how could Xiao Hua not go? Great. Hua Furong clapped her hands and said, "I often mention fellow Taoist Xiao in front of my great-grandpa. Presumably, there will be some benefits for fellow Taoist Xiao this time, right? Hee, that's the best. This Xiao likes benefits the most." Xiao Hua's face was full of smiles. Xiao Hua, Xue Xue, and Hua Furong left the cave and sealed the cave with a magic tablet. Only then did they follow Hua Furong all the way to a high place. Xiao Hua naturally hadn't been to the residences of Golden Core and Nascent Soul cultivators. Along the way, when they passed by different areas, Haoming City's city guards would kindly remind them, but they definitely wouldn't forcefully stop them. Hua Furong ignored them and only took out the Ardent Fire Mountain's token and shook it. Without waiting for the city guards to see if they could see it clearly, they immediately rushed past the city guards. Xiao Hua followed behind Hua Furong, looking at the residences of Gold Core cultivators and Nascent Soul cultivators with great interest. He thought to himself, "This Haoming City is really thoughtful. The concentration of heaven and earth spirit chi in different areas of the mountain range is absolutely different. The spirit grasses and spirit trees in each area are also poles apart. The style of the Immortal's cave is even more different. If this young master didn't come up to take a look, I really wouldn't have known the secret." Stop. Just when Xiao Hua was looking left and right to find something interesting, a divine sense swept past and locked onto the 3 of them. Who is it? Why would Hua Furong care about this? In front of Xiao Hua, she was still fine, but in front of other people, her fiery temper was immediately born. She released her divine sense without hesitation and collided with that divine sense. "Fellow Taoist Hua." Xiao Hua was slightly startled and promptly called out, "Don't be rash." Of course, the other party was in the late stage of the foundation building realm, and his divine sense was much stronger than Hua Furong's. Hua Furong's action was tantamount to striking a stone with an egg. However, when Xiao Hua reminded him, he came to a realization. This was the residence of a nascent soul cultivator, and this foundation building cultivator was either a city guard or a disciple of a nascent soul cultivator here. Hua Furong was a disciple of Ardent Fire Mountain, so how could she lose face for Ardent Fire Mountain? Naturally, if it was a foundation building cultivator who broke into this place, Hua Furong would be even more arrogant. Sure enough, when that cultivator saw Hua Furong's reaction, he immediately withdrew his divine sense and said warmly, "May I know which cultivation group fellow Taoist is from?" Xiao Hua didn't release his divine sense. By the time he looked into the distance, an old man wearing the armor of a city guard was flying towards them with 2 early-stage foundation building city guards. These 3 people all had swords hanging from their waists. "This lady is a disciple of Ardent Fire Mountain. Have you all never seen me before?" Hua Furong didn't care who they were and said without any trace of politeness. -8. Chapter 2039. Hee, I was wrong. The old man slapped his forehead and came to a realization. I went to visit Elder Hua a few days ago, so I should know what you look like. Alas, it's all because this place was a little messy just now, which angered the nascent soul senior here. That's why I was so careful. Please forgive me, Miss Hua. Although Hua Furong had a bad temper, she was still a descendant of a famous sect. Seeing the old man apologize, she felt embarrassed and quickly bowed. I'm Hua Furong from the Blazing Fire Mountain. I've offended you just now. May I know when fellow Taoists met my great-grandfather? I don't seem to have seen you before. It's fine, it's fine. The old man flicked his sleeves and said, I'm Yu Chen, the new captain of the city guards of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Countless cultivators visit Elder Hua's cave every day. How could fellow Taoists remember me? Hey, this is the captain of the city guards who replaced Shang Qinghe? Xiao Hua looked at the old man and thought, he looks much more humble than Shang Qinghe. However, I wonder if Lu Cheng's material for refining tools has been delivered to him. Hee. So it's Captain Yu from the Blazing Fire Mountain. I've been disrespectful. Hua Furong smiled and looked around. She asked curiously, this should be the cave of Master Qin Yan from the Mo Sang Mountain. His temper has always been good. Why did he get angry? Alas, it's because a few Foundation establishment cultivators wanted to make friends with Master Qin Yan. Not only did they send a communication talisman, they even sneaked to his cave and wanted to visit him. Yu Chen smiled bitterly. You said that the rules of the Blazing Fire Mountain were clear, but they just wanted to take the risk. I can punish them according to the city rules, but they have a sect after all, so I can't really kill them. Fellow Taoist Hua, you must know that the city guards of the Blazing Fire Mountain only stop them, but never stop them. Yes, I understand. Hua Furong smiled and said, Master Qin Yan is famous for his good temper. He won't really kill them, so these Foundation establishment cultivators wanted to find him. Hee, that's right. They all want to go to the auction to find some good stuff, but they don't even think about it. Even if they do find something good, what do they have that would catch the eye of a nascent soul cultivator? Yu Chen nodded and then cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist Hua, please. This old man was just complaining a little. I've made a fool of myself. A lot of cultivators went to the Ardent Fire Mountain's Immortal's cave today. I'm afraid there must be something going on, right? Hua Furong smiled and said, Yes, the 3 old ancestors invited their good friends. These 2 fellow Taoists from the Imperial Thunder sect are also my good friends. That's why they followed me to the banquet. Oh? So you are disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, sorry for the disrespect. Yu Chen hurriedly saluted Xiao Hua and Xue Xue. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue naturally returned the salute and introduced themselves. Your sect's Reverend Miyu is on the other side of Haoming City. This old man saw him a few months ago. Yu Chen said with a smile. Kenlei Palace's Taoist Miyu? Joy appeared on Xiao Hua's face as he said, This Xiao has already come out to gain experience for several years. It's been a long time since I've seen him. I'll pay him a visit tomorrow. Yes, this is the filial piety of us junior disciples. Yu Chen nodded and told him where Taoist Miyu lived, then cupped his hands and flew away with the 2 city guards. After Yu Chen left, Hua Furong said with a smile, The city guards of Haoming City really have it tough. They don't dare to get too angry even when facing cultivators with lower cultivation than them. If it was me, I would have thrown a fireball at him. Who cares who he is? Hee, so Big Sister Hua is a disciple of Ardent Fire Mountain, and Senior Yu Chen is a city guard of Haoming City. Xue Xue pursed her lips and laughed. Let's go. Hua Hibiscus covered her mouth and laughed. She flew up again, and in the time it took to brew a cup of tea, she flew to a brightly lit place. This was clearly an Immortal's cave, but it was clearly much more imposing than Xiao Hua's Immortal's cave. A jade door, several dozen meters in size, stood tall among the mountain rocks. The door was exquisitely carved, and various patterns appeared. There were no fluctuations of magic power. In front of the door, there were several children dressed in brocade robes, holding bright red lanterns in their hands. They seemed to be welcoming guests. In front of them, there were a dozen or so Foundation establishment cultivators scattered about. They were looking at the door of the Immortal's cave, presumably wanting to pay a visit to the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. When those children saw Hua Ferong, they all smiled and said, "Martial Aunt Ferong, Martial Aunt Ferong." Two of them, who looked very similar, rushed out and shouted, "Martial Aunt, today, the two of us have crushed 32 messaging talismans, and the winner hasn't been decided. What do you think we should do?" This? Hua Ferong pretended to be troubled. "If the winner can't be decided, then I can't give you the medicinal pills." While they were talking, one of the boys suddenly flew towards Hua Ferong's side. The other boy's face was filled with shame, anger, and regret. That was because a communication talisman flew over from Xiao Hua's side and landed in the boy's hand. Just as Hua Ferong had said, the boy didn't even look at the communication talisman. With a pinch of his hand, the communication talisman was crushed. "Ha ha ha, I'm first, I'm first!" That child cheerfully shouted in midair. However, at this time, a slightly old voice came from the messaging talisman. "Hua Zhishan, this old man is Lan Yu from Xian Le sect. Tomorrow at noon, I have something to discuss with you, ah?" When the boy heard these words, his dancing body came to a halt in midair. The smile on his little face also froze. Very quickly it was replaced by a mournful expression. Clearly, he was about to cry. "Martial uncle, save me." Of course, he directly called out the name of Hua Zhishan of the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain, and called himself Lan Yu from Xian Le sect. Wasn't he Taoist Master Lan Yu from Meng Country's Xian Le sect? He was also an early nascent soul cultivator's messaging talisman, but it was actually crushed by a gatekeeper of Ardent Fire Mountain. How could a small child bear this kind of responsibility? Hua Ferong saw this and sighed in her heart. She understood very well that this wasn't just a messaging talisman. It was a greeting from a nascent soul cultivator. That child should have delivered it to the three elders in a complete and respectful manner. To crush it so rashly, it really showed that Ardent Fire Mountain didn't have any rules. However, Hua Ferong was also annoyed. She couldn't blame the child. As long as a nascent soul cultivator came to visit, they would first send a disciple to deliver a name card. It wasn't as simple as using a messaging talisman. This messaging talisman was somewhat rude. "Don't be afraid. Martial Aunt will take this messaging talisman inside." Hua Ferong reached out and took it. She smiled and said to the child, "However, today's medicinal pills are gone." "Many thanks, Martial Aunt." The child's face immediately beamed with joy. "As long as Grandmaster Grandfather doesn't blame me, this little one is happy." -8. Chapter 2040. I've let fellow Taoist Xiao see a joke. Hua Ferong held the summoning talisman in her hand and said to Xiao Hua very apologetically, "My Blazing Fire Mountain's rules are strict, but I can't bear it." Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Hua is so kind. How could you be wrong? I actually feel that this is very heartwarming." Hua Ferong was very happy and said with a smile, "I'm already satisfied that fellow Taoist Xiao doesn't see a joke. I'm a bit arrogant with such praise." Seeing Hua Ferong restraining her temper and talking to Xiao Hua, the group of children was curious and looked at Xiao Hua without blinking. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, little sister Shui, please," Hua Ferong said and led Xiao Hua and Shui into the courtyard. Behind the courtyard was a restriction. Although there was a bead curtain, it wasn't a screen wall but a spacious corridor behind the bead curtain. The corridor was quite peaceful and didn't seem to be chaotic. Just as Hua Ferong stepped into the corridor, she saw a person walking quickly from the other end of the corridor. As soon as he saw Hua Ferong, he shouted, "Ferong, when did grandfather call me? How could you lie to big brother?" Xiao Hua frowned. Wasn't this person the Fire Qilin? What a coincidence. Just as he stepped into the Blazing Fire Mountain's Immortal cave, he immediately ran into the person he didn't want to see the most. "Oh, fellow Taoist Shui!" Xiao Hua and Shui also turned into the corridor, and were immediately seen by the Fire Qilin. How could the Fire Qilin still have time to complain about Hua Ferong? His face was full of surprise and he quickly walked over and bowed very seriously. A few days without seeing fellow Taoist Shui is like 3 years. Cough, cough. Xiaohua took a step forward and blocked the somewhat embarrassed Shui behind him. He cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist Hua, we seem to have just met yesterday, right? How many days have we not seen each other? Is that so? The fire Qilin only glanced at Xiaohua and immediately looked at Shui. I've always been with fellow Taoist Shui. Although we haven't seen each other for a day, it feels like we haven't seen each other for several days. Shui was greatly embarrassed and said in a low voice, Senior Hua, be careful with your words. When have I been with you all this time? Why not? The fire Qilin was somewhat anxious. He pointed at fire hibiscus and said, Hasn't fellow Taoist Shui been with I and hibiscus for the past 100 days? Shui breathed a sigh of relief and glanced at Xiaohua. Xiaohua saw that the fire Qilin only had eyes for Shui and was truly speechless. If the fire Qilin had made any moves, Xiaohua could have used it as a pretext to make a fuss, or even leave in a huff. But this guy had the appearance of an infatuated child, and didn't even say a single unreasonable word. Xiaohua really didn't know what to do. Fellow Taoist Hua. Xiaohua smiled. He held Shui's hand and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Hua, my humble junior sister was taken care of by the 2 fellow Taoist Hua. This Xiao is very grateful. Today, I specially came to your esteemed residence to thank you. It's nothing. Fellow Taoist Shui's appearance is like a celestial being, and her character is noble and pure. She's just like a true immortal that has been banished to the mortal world. We mortals have to protect her with our lives. The fire Qilin didn't have Xiaohua in its eyes at all. It only stared at Shui as it spoke with sincerity. Cousin! At the side, Hua Furong had an awkward expression. She managed to get the fire Qilin to come back with great difficulty. She didn't expect that she would bump into them the moment she returned to the Immortal's cave. Moreover, she was very clear about the relationship between Shui and Xiaohua. Naturally, she also talked to the fire Qilin in detail. Unfortunately, the fire Qilin didn't listen at all. She was also helpless. Great-grandfather wants to see fellow Taoist Xiao. We should hurry and go in, Hua Furong reminded. Then let fellow Taoist Xiao go in. Why does fellow Taoist Shui have to follow? The fire Qilin was stunned. Great-grandfather is entertaining those snobbish people. What fun is there inside? Fellow Taoist Shui might as well go with Furong to see the lovely flowers. Right now, they should be blooming. It's the most gorgeous time. Senior Hua, Junior wants to accompany senior brother in. If you don't want to go, you can admire the lovely flowers by yourself. Shui leaned her body against Xiaohua and smiled apologetically. Oh, since that's the case, I will also accompany fellow Taoist Shui in. Although the fire Qilin was disappointed, it still smiled. Damn it! Xiaohua almost wanted to use his hand to slap his forehead. At this moment, an amiable voice resounded. Furong, Qilin? Who are the 2 of you talking to? Hua Furong's face reddened. She promptly smiled and said, Great-grandfather, what are you saying? Didn't you ask the boy to invite fellow Taoist Xiao here? Oh? Xiao. Xiaohua, I know. Let this child come in quickly. The voice was slightly stunned, but it was still amiable. Hua Furong's face showed an apologetic expression. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you see, great-grandfather is also old. I reckon that he drank a lot of spiritual wine last night. He even forgot what he said just now. It's fine, it's fine. Xiaohua smiled and said, I reckon that right now, the banquet is full of nascent soul and golden core seniors. I'm already satisfied to be able to see Elder Hua. And, fellow Taoists, please. As Hua Furong spoke, she glanced at the fire Qilin. That guy's gaze was still on Shui's face. He didn't have the awareness of being a senior and leading the way at the front. Without any other choice, Hua Furong could only lead Xiaohua and Shui. The fire Qilin followed behind them and walked through the long corridor. As soon as Xiaohua and the others turned around the long corridor, their eyes immediately lit up. A burst of music filled their ears. They saw that this was a hall that was several hundred feet in size. The decorations were extremely gorgeous, and all kinds of strange patterns covered the entire hall. Even the floor was paved with huge pieces of spirit stones. On top of the spirit stones, Xiaohua first saw a dozen or so beautiful smiling female cultivators with graceful waists. Each and every one of these female cultivators wore strange clothes. Most of their snow-white skin was exposed, and their arms and legs were casually dancing. Their limbs exuded a kind of lazy feeling. After Xiaohua's gaze paused for a moment between these dancers, he looked at his surroundings again. Around him were some jade tables that cultivators often used to entertain guests. At this time, they were divided into 3 places. There were 5 tables at the head, and there were 5 tables at the left and right sides. Behind the table at the center of the head was a tall nascent soul cultivator wearing a fiery red Taoist robe. This cultivator's face was very strange. His forehead was bulging, his nose was sunken, his mouth was bloody, and his ears were strangely small. His entire face was very similar to hibiscus and huichilin. Behind his left hand was a nascent soul cultivator's table, and behind his right hand was a nascent soul cultivator's table. There were also 2 nascent soul cultivators wearing fiery red Taoist robes. They looked almost exactly the same as him. No wonder! When Xiaohua saw the appearance of the 3 people, he immediately understood. Previously, he had suspected that hibiscus also knew a secret technique to deceive the world like him, and could change her appearance like Kai Zhuixia. Now, it seemed that this was her true appearance. Seeing Xiaohua's group of 4 enter, everyone in the main hall very naturally swept their divine senses over them. There was no need to mention hibiscus and huichilin. Their faces were their signature. Who didn't know them? They swept their divine senses over Xiaohua and Shuai a few times. However, when they saw that they were Foundation Establishment and Qi Refining disciples, they withdrew their divine senses. Only the Foundation Establishment cultivator on the right had a shocked expression on his face. Naturally, the one sitting in the center was the eldest of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain, Zhishan. However, even though he was called the eldest, he wasn't that big of a deal. The second elder, Huishui, and the third elder, Huapikong, followed closely behind him. They were the triplets' twin brothers. Since young, these triplets' minds were connected and their aptitudes were the same. Among the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain, they were known as geniuses. And the most interesting thing was that these 3 people's cultivation advancement was also the same. Their breakthroughs in Foundation Establishment, Gold Core, and Nascent Soul Realms were definitely not more than 10 days apart. In the country of Xi, the Ardent Fire Mountain was neither big nor small. It was precisely because of these 3 brothers that their strength was ranked very high. The most amazing thing was that in the present day, when the ancient formations had been lost, the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain somehow managed to obtain a combination of 3 people. The 3 of them together could fight against 6 nascent soul cultivators. With this, the reputation of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain became even more resounding in the country of Xi. After the group of dancers retreated, Huafeng brought Xiaohua and Shuai to the front. She bowed and said, "Great-grandfather, this is the Xiaohua that the boy often mentioned to you." It was fellow Taoist Xiao who saved the boy from the evil clutches of the heavenly demon sect that day. Junior's Imperial Thunder Sect Xiaohua and Shuai greet Senior Hua. Xiaohua didn't dare to neglect and pulled Shuai forward to greet him. "And get up." Zhishan smiled. The pockmarks on his face became even brighter. With a wave of his hand, a great force stopped Xiaohua and Shuai's figures. He smiled and said, "Who is your master? Is it someone this old man knows?" Junior's master is Thunderclap Palace's helplessness. Xiaohua smiled apologetically. "I'm afraid Senior Hua doesn't know. Junior's master is Thunderclap Palace's Sun Ming." Shuai also said, "Oh, Thunderclap Palace's Thunderclap spiritual master. This old man has heard of him, but has never seen him before." Zhishan smiled. "Fellow Taoist helplessness, I really don't know him. What is his cultivation level? Junior's master is at the late stage of foundation establishment, Xiaohua carefully said. Only at the late stage of foundation establishment? Hu Zhishan on the left shouted. No wonder this old man was pondering just now. All right, Senior Hu knows. Junior has also just reached foundation establishment. Master? Of course it's impossible for him to be at Golden Core. Xiaohua bitterly smiled. And, since ancient times, don't ask about a hero's origin. As long as you have cultivation and strength, who cares about your origin? Another Hu Zhishan said. You saved our Furong, so you have fate with our ardent fire mountain. Come, arrange a seat for Xiaohua. Yes. The distant ardent fire mountain disciple replied, placing a table at the end of the left and placing spirit wine, spirit fruits, and other things on it. At this time, Hu Zhishan smiled. Come, Xiaohua, greet the two seniors beside this old man. As he spoke, he pointed to the left. This is Lonely Sex Xian Yunzi. Xiaohua understood Hu Zhishan's meaning and quickly stepped forward, bowing deeply. Junior Xiaohua greets Senior Xian Yunzi. And Xian Yunzi slightly nodded, ignoring him. Hu Zhishan smiled. Fellow Taoist Xian Yunzi, if you meet Xiaohua in the future, please take care of him for this old man's sake. -8. Chapter 2041. Well said! Xian Yunzi nodded again. Xiaohua didn't dare to neglect Xian Yunzi and said happily, Thank you, Senior Xian Yunzi. This is Huangdao Sex Taoist Shui Mo. The nascent soul cultivator on Hu Zhishan's right smiled. Taoist Shui Mo, please take care of him in the future. Junior Xiaohua greets Senior Shui Mo. Xiaohua bowed again. And get up. Taoist Shui Mo waved his hand. Imperial Thunder Sect is a big sect, not something Ardent Fire Mountain, Blue Li Sect, and Huangdao Sect can compare to. Hee, Xiaohua is just a junior. Although he has Imperial Thunder Sect's background, there will always be times when he meets difficulties. If you two fellow Taoists can meet him, it will be as easy as lifting a hand. Hu Zhishan smiled and raised his cup. Come, fellow Taoists, please. Please, Xian Yunzi and Taoist Shui Mo raised their cups and said. Xiaohua was quite surprised to see Hu Shrouded Mountain talking to the two nascent soul cultivators. He thought it would be great if he could meet the two nascent soul cultivators and report their names. Who would have thought it would be like this? Hu Zhishan must love this junior named Hu Furong very much. Unfortunately, Xiaohua didn't see Hu Furong's shocked expression, or he would be even more surprised. When Hu Zhishan and the others put down their cups, a mid-gold core cultivator on the left stood up. It was Lonely Sex Baiyu. He smiled and said, Junior congratulates Senior Hu's nephew for being able to escape from Heavenly Demon Sect's evil hands. However, after listening to what Senior Hu said just now, I don't understand. Oh? Does nephew have any questions? Hu Zhishan looked at Xian Yunzi and asked Baiyu. Baiyu said, Junior has a disciple who just entered Foundation establishment. However, in this junior's opinion, this junior's disciple's cultivation is even inferior to Ardent Fire Mountain's Hu Furong. Furthermore, Xiaohua just said that he had also just built his foundation. How could he possibly save Hu Furong? Moreover, according to Elder Hu, Heavenly Demon Sect has 3 Foundation establishment cultivators. Xiaohua also has a Qi Refinement junior sister. How could he save Hu Furong? It would be good enough if he didn't run away, right? Baiyu said again. If Xiaohua and his junior sister saved Hu Furong, then turned around and left, then Junior would not have anything to suspect. Moreover, he only came to Haoming City to look for Senior Hu after nearly a year with junior sister. Senior Hu has to be on guard against Xiaohua and Shue's intentions. Senior Bai, what do you mean by this? Before Xiaohua could speak, the Fire Qilin walked over from behind Shui and said with a frown, Fellow Taoist Shui came to Haoming City with Furong several months ago. How could it be like what you said? Besides, with fellow Taoist Shui's character, why would he do such a dirty thing? Baiyu was slightly startled, then he smiled and said, I don't know the details. I only heard Elder Hua asking about the whereabouts of the heavenly demon sect. Only then did I know about this. I'm just stating facts. I'm somewhat doubtful about Xiao Hua's cultivation. That's just a wild guess. Fellow Taoist Shui would never do that. The Fire Qilin retorted without hesitation. Qilin, Hua Pakong stopped him. Bai Wei is your senior, you can't be so rude. Besides, you're usually rather refined. Why are you so reckless today? He can talk about anyone, but he can't talk about fellow Taoist Shui. The Fire Qilin said stiffly. You child. Hua Paishui smiled. Bai Wei is just reminding you. It's nothing. Even reminding is not allowed. Damn it. Xiao Hua had a good impression of the Fire Qilin. This guy seems to be somewhat infatuated. Even I feel ashamed of my inferiority. Hua Paishui was somewhat helpless. He knew the Fire Qilin's temper. He could only smile and point at the table. Furong, accompany Shui Shui to rest over there. Yes. Hua Furong didn't dare to disobey. She glanced at Bai Yu and said, At that time, I was captured by the heavenly demon sect disciples and was unconscious. When I woke up, there was only Xiao Hua and Shui Shui beside me. The 3 demons had already been executed. It was Xiao Hua who did it. How can I be wrong? After that, she didn't speak anymore. She pulled Shui Shui's hand and walked towards the table. The Fire Qilin naturally didn't hesitate to follow. Only Xiao Hua stood there. When Furong told me about this matter, I was also shocked. First, I had only heard of the heavenly demon sect's name and didn't know the details. Therefore, I just wanted to ask my fellow Taoists about their knowledge. Second, heavenly demon sect actually dared to make a move on my Ardent Fire Mountain's direct disciple. It can be said that their ambition is truly hateful. Third, I didn't believe what Bai Yu said just now. An early-stage foundation establishment cultivator can kill 3 cultivators of the same level. Hua Paishui smiled. However, after I carefully thought about it and made some inquiries, I found out that the heavenly demon sect is made up of devil cultivators. In addition, their foundation establishment cultivators can't compare to our foundation establishment cultivators. Moreover, Xiao Hua is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Their lightning cultivation method is the nemesis of devil cultivators. Since senior was said so, this junior can't say anything. Bai Yu smiled. This junior is only reminding you as an outsider. Don't fall into the trap of others. Even if it's a famous sect, there are still some direct disciples who can't do such dirty things. Ha ha ha, seeing Bai Yu sit down, Hua Paishui laughed. Many thanks for Blue Li Sect's fellow Taoist concern. My Ardent Fire Mountain naturally knows the severity of this matter. In fact, Furong has already said that it was because she was careless. It seems that she knew that loose cultivator in the past. Therefore, she fell into the trap. If it was a normal time, those 3 cultivators might not be able to catch her. Then, he said to Xiao Hua, Xiao Hua, tell me what happened that day. After all, Furong was unconscious at that time and didn't see it. Yes. This junior doesn't dare to disobey. Xiao Hua knew that when he came here, he would definitely be asked about the process. He had already thought about it. Anyway, there were no secrets, only the Samadhi true fire. As a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, knowing the Samadhi true fire, it wasn't too strange. Thus, Xiao Hua recounted everything that had happened. You know the Samadhi true fire? Hua Zhishan's face revealed a happy expression. Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and nodded. Good, Senior Hua knows. If it wasn't for the Samadhi true fire, this junior would have fallen into the hands of the heavenly demon sect. Xiao Hua felt that it was inappropriate. He regretted not changing the Samadhi true fire to the Thunder Palm. But really, how could the Thunder Palm defeat cultivators of the same level? Show it to me. Hua Zhishan laughed. This? Xiao Hua said embarrassedly. Ardent Fire Mountain is a sect that controls fire. This junior shouldn't reveal this little bit of pettiness, right? -8. Chapter 2042. Good boy, you're quite generous. Xian Yunzi of the Blue Li sect mocked. I'm not proficient in Samadhi True Fire, and you say it's petty. Junior doesn't dare. Junior. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. No matter, show it to me. Hua Paokong smiled. Everyone here is your senior, what's there to be afraid of? Yes. When Xiao Hua heard this, he could only brace himself and open his hand. An inch-long Samadhi True Fire appeared in his palm. Seeing that the Samadhi True Fire only had a strand of red within the pure purple, the cultivators present all sucked in a breath of cold air. Although Xiao Hua's Samadhi True Fire was small, it was pure. Xiao Hua was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. If he was at the nascent soul stage, how big would the Samadhi True Fire be? All the nascent soul cultivators were well aware of this. Damn it! I finally understand why you were able to easily kill the 3 demons from the Heavenly Demon Sect. Hua Paokong smiled. Your Samadhi True Fire is their nemesis. Yes, Xiao Hua put away the Samadhi True Fire and said with an apologetic smile. Junior was also forced to activate this Samadhi True Fire after various spells were ineffective. If this thing is still unable to do anything, Junior can only take Junior's sister and flee. And this thing hit the demons, no wonder it didn't leave behind any remains. Hua Zhishan grinned and said, Xiao Hua, take out the demons' things and let the seniors have a look. Let's see if there are any clues about the Heavenly Demon Sect. Yes. Xiao Hua had already prepared this item and unhesitatingly took out a storage pouch from his waist. Hua Zhishan waved his hand and Xiao Hua's storage pouch was sucked into his hand. He scanned it with his divine sense and frowned, then passed it to Master Shui Mo. After everyone had finished looking, the last foundation establishment cultivator on the right handed the storage pouch back to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua glanced at this somewhat familiar-looking cultivator, but before he could think, he heard Xian Yunzi say, This matter is somewhat troublesome. The methods of the Heavenly Demon Sect are quite strange. I've only heard of similar methods among the demonic cultivators. Many of the methods of the demonic cultivators are not things that we cultivators can practice. Could it be that the sect leader of the Heavenly Demon Sect found a method to practice the demonic techniques? Yes, that should be the case. Master Shuemo also said. I've previously heard about the Heavenly Demon Sect's disciples, but in the cultivation's 3 kingdoms, every year there are small sects and small sects. At the same time, some small sects and small sects and small sections. Who would have thought that the Heavenly Demon Sect, they sect? The key point is that since they dared to make a move on my Blazing Fire Mountain, they will definitely make a move on the Blue Li Sect and Huangdao Sect. In the future, they will definitely make a move on the Imperial Thunder Sect and Huanhua Sect. This kind of sect is terrifying. Yes, we need to think about this at length. Hua Zhishan nodded, then turned to Xiao Hua and said, Xiao Hua, take your place. Originally, this old man wanted to give you some rewards in front of these 2 Dao friends. Consider it my ardent Fire Mountain's gratitude, but since you know the Samadhi True Fire, this old man will have to consider it carefully. Yes, Junior understands. Xiao Hua didn't dare to say any more humble words. He bowed and walked to the lowest table on the left. Although Fire Qilin didn't sit next to Shui Shui, Hua Hibiscus couldn't block Fire Qilin's gaze. Fellow Taoist Xiao. Hua Hibiscus smiled apologetically. I've told Grandfather everything I know and what Sister Shui told me. Grandfather naturally believes in fellow Taoists, but I didn't expect the disciples of the Blue Li Sect too. Xiao Hua saw that the hot-tempered Hua Hibiscus was so obedient and smiled. Don't worry, what they said makes sense. If I didn't have the true Samadhi fire, I wouldn't dare to say that I could save fellow Taoist Hua from the Heavenly Demon Sect. Hua Hibiscus grinned. Although she looked ugly, her eyes were sincere. She raised her cup. This is my Fiery Mountain's fiery wine. It's the most effective for fire-type physiques. Fellow Taoist Xiao should drink a few more cups. Spiritual wine again. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. However, He thought that everyone present were nascent soul and golden core cultivators. He was just a small character. No one would plot against him. The moment the fiery wine entered his mouth, he instantly felt a burning hot current rush into his body. Xiao Hua choked and almost shed tears. Immediately, the hot current turned into spiritual energy and rushed into his meridians. Like a fire snake, it followed the Heart Sutra and went through a cycle. Only when Xiao Hua's entire body was boiling hot did the spiritual energy dissipate in his meridians. What a tyrannical spiritual wine! Xiao Hua sighed and said, "Hee, this spiritual wine has a benefit," Hua Hibiscus said with a smile. However, just as she said that, her face turned red and she stopped. Xiao Hua didn't see it and asked curiously, "There's a special benefit? I'm all ears." "This?" Hua Hibiscus murmured. "I heard grandfather say that. It seems to be related to dual cultivation." Although Hua Hibiscus was ugly, her skin was extremely white. At this moment, her earlobes and neck were slightly red. Sweat. Xiao Hua was also embarrassed. He was about to hide something when he heard someone transmit sound in his ear. "Xiao Hua, this old man has already introduced the nascent soul cultivators. As for the golden core cultivators present, let Hibiscus bring you to toast them. In the future, when you walk around Dawn Rain Continent, it will be convenient." Xiao Hua looked up and saw Hua Zhishan's ugly face looking at him with a smile. Xiao Hua didn't dare to transmit sound in fear of being discovered by the other nascent soul cultivators. At this moment, Hua Hibiscus also received Hua Zhishan's order. She waved her hand and asked the ardent Fire Mountain disciple behind her to bring a wine pot and a jade cup. She whispered to Xiao Hua, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, the cultivators present all have some face in Xi or Meng country. This servant's master is an ardent Fire Mountain and didn't come with grandfather. This servant can only toast them. Fellow Taoist Xiao is a disciple of Imperial Thunder sect, and also this servant's savior. This can be considered as getting to know them. In the future, it should be helpful to fellow Taoist Xiao." "Good." Xiao Hua stood up with Hua Hibiscus. He knew that this was an opportunity given to him by Hua Zhishan. Whether he was willing or not, he had to get up and toast. The two nascent soul cultivators wouldn't accept Xiao Hua's toast. Therefore, Hua Hibiscus led Xiao Hua to toast from the left side. There were 5 tables on the left side. They were the 2 middle gold core stage cultivators of Blue Li sect, Baiyu and Kuqingqiang, the middle gold core stage cultivator of Blazing Flame sect, Meng Shi, and early gold core stage cultivator of Blazing Flame sect, Lu Lanlan. At the bottom, next to Xiao Hua, was the middle foundation establishment stage cultivator of Lian country, Wang Ming. The other cultivators were easy to talk to. For the sake of Ardent Fire Mountain's face, they all smiled and greeted Xiao Hua. After drinking the spirit wine, only Baiyu coldly looked at Xiao Hua and asked, "Xiao Hua, this old man feels that you have some problems. Let's not talk about your Samadhi true fire. How can this Samadhi true fire burn 3 foundation establishment cultivators at the same time? As long as you burn one of them, the other 2 will attack you at the same time. Can you escape? Moreover, after you saved Hua Hibiscus, you suddenly disappeared and only sent your junior sister to Haoming City. Where have you been for nearly a year? How can this old man not suspect that you have colluded with the Heavenly Demon sect?" Similarly, without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Hua Hibiscus was also displeased and coldly said, "Senior Baiyu, this is something that my Ardent Fire Mountain should consider, right? Since Xiao Hua is hiding something, he is also a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. It is impossible for him to collude with the demons of the Heavenly Demon sect. Even my great-grandfather believes it. There is no need for Senior to worry too much." Hee. Baiyu smiled and looked at Hua Hibiscus and then at Xiao Hua. He didn't say anything and didn't drink that cup of wine. Xiao Hua originally didn't want to be meddlesome, but this Baiyu's repeated suspicions also made Xiao Hua somewhat angry. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior Baiyu's suspicions are indeed reasonable. Of course, I can't tell Senior where I went this year, but I can explain to Senior how I was able to escape the attacks of 2 foundation building cultivators. Oh? If you can convince this old man will drink this cup of wine, Baiyu said with a smile. Senior only knows that Junior is a foundation establishment cultivator, but don't forget Junior's origin. Xiaohua faced Baiyu. Junior is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Junior naturally has the strengths of the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. Ah? You actually know the lightning evasion technique? Baiyu was somewhat surprised. This old man has a friend who is also a foundation establishment disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. He is already in the late stage of foundation establishment, but he has yet to learn the lightning evasion technique. He is a direct disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. You, from your surname, you shouldn't be a direct disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, right? How is it possible for you? Senior Baiyu, what is impossible in this world? Xiaohua looked at Baiyu with a smile. Forget it. Baiyu raised his cup and said with a bitter smile, This old man is asking for trouble today. This old man will drink this cup of wine. The last cultivator on the right had been paying attention to Xiaohua. When he heard the conversation between Xiaohua and Baiyu, his face unconsciously revealed a thoughtful expression. After toasting the 5 cultivators on the left, it was the 5 cultivators on the right. These cultivators were Huangdao Sect's middle stage golden core stage cultivator Xingting and early stage golden core stage cultivator Su Yun. Meng Country's Immortal Music Sect's middle stage golden core stage cultivator Li Qingxiu and middle stage foundation establishment cultivator Zhiming. The last cultivator, Xiaohua, who looked somewhat familiar, was Xunyan School's middle stage foundation establishment cultivator Lian Yu. However, although Xiaohua was paying attention to Lian Yu, he didn't have the slightest impression of this unfamiliar name. Lian Yu also followed the rules, as if he didn't know Xiaohua at all. Thus, Xiaohua casually said a few words to these 5 cultivators and returned to his seat. It could be said that he had completely thrown Lian Yu's matter aside. After a moment, Hu Zhishan, Dois Shuemo, and the others roared with laughter as if they were talking about something extremely interesting. Hu Zhikong called the dancers over. After watching the dance that made Xiaohua feel somewhat embarrassed, everyone dispersed. Hu Zhishan left Xiaohua and Shui alone while he and his 2 brothers sent Daoist Shuemo and Xian Yunzi out of the cave. -8. Chapter 2043. Fellow Taoist Shao, please. Hu Furong ordered the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain to clean up the other tables before inviting Xiaohua and Shui to sit on the left. However, before Xiaohua and Shui could sit, Hu Zhishan and the other 2 had already returned. Hu Zhishan smiled and said, Xiaohua and Shui come with this old man. Yes. Xiaohua and Shui had already stood up. Hearing this, they looked at each other in surprise and followed Hu Zhishan into the hall. Furong, you come too! Fire Qilin did not need Hu Zhishan's order, and had already followed behind Shui. Hu Furong was hesitant because Hu Zhishan clearly had something to tell her. However, hearing Hu Zhishan's call, Hu Furong quickly followed. After the hall, there were several different corridors. Hu Zhishan did not hesitate to choose the middle corridor and walked in. Fire Qilin only had Shui in his eyes and did not care, but Hu Furong frowned. When Hu Zhishan stopped in front of the last room, Hu Furong was even more confused. This room was where the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain usually cultivated. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. Even Fire Qilin and Hu Furong could not enter without being summoned. Hu Zhishan looked at the 4 people kindly, and waved his sleeve, opening the room's restriction and entering first. Then, the other 2 elders looked at each other with a mysterious smile and followed him in. Xiaohua entered the room and realized that it was extremely large. It was probably half the size of the reception hall. In the room, there were 3 praying mats placed in a triangular formation. Below them were some simple decorations such as jades and bottles. Qilin, Furong, you 2 accompany Xiaohua and Shui. Hu Zhishan waved his sleeve and walked to the center praying mat. He smiled and said, "This old man has some matters to discuss." Yes. Although Fire Qilin should be the one to respond, Hua Furong could only answer on his behalf. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, please sit." Hua Furong reached out and took out a few praying mats from her storage pouch. She casually placed them in the quiet room and invited Xiao Hua to take a seat. Although Hua Zhishan wanted Xiao Hua and the others to sit as they pleased, how could Xiao Hua dare? He smiled and said, "This Xiao is prepared to stand. If I sit down, I'm afraid it would be disrespectful to the seniors." Seeing this, Shui naturally nodded and said softly, "Let's stand here and talk." "Okay, I'll listen to fellow Taoist Shui." The Fire Qilin, who had been silent all this time, waved his hand and put the several praying mats back into his storage bag. "Fire Qilin." Hua Furong was a bit angry. She said in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist Xiao and little sister Shui are guests. Grandfather ordered them to sit. They are just being polite, so how can you take it seriously?" "Oh, okay." The Fire Qilin was like a puppet that had lost its soul. With a flick of its hand, the 4 praying mats fell to the ground. Shui looked at Xiao Hua awkwardly. Xiao Hua also looked at the Fire Qilin, but it turned a deaf ear to Xiao Hua's gaze. Sigh. Thinking about how the Fire Qilin protected Shui, Xiao Hua did not know how to treat it. Cough, cough. Above the cultivation room, the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain had smiles in their eyes. They communicated in a low voice for a moment before nodding. Hua Zhishan coughed and said, "Xiao Hua, you all should sit down. This old man has something to say to you." This junior obeys. Xiao Hua bowed and sat down. "Just now at the banquet, the disciples of Lanli sect doubted you. Please don't take it to heart." Hua Zhishan thought for a moment and said, "This old man knows that you are a disciple of Imperial Thunder sect. You would not collude with any demon from Sky Demon sect. However, the Lanli sect has always wanted to be at the forefront of the cultivation sects in the country of Xi. They are quite hostile towards the Huanhua sect and the Imperial Thunder sect. This old man understands his intentions. When he asked you to reveal some spells, it was also to let you become famous. Yes, this junior understands." This was the first time Xiao Hua knew that Lanli sect was hostile towards Huanhua sect and Imperial Thunder sect. However, he was very happy that Hua Zhishan was explaining this to him. The regret from before was swept away. "You saved my family's Furong. The 3 of us are very happy." After hearing the benefits that Furong promised you, the 3 of us also agreed. "Let's not talk about bringing you to participate in the auction. Just now, this old man has already prepared some benefits for you. We don't dare. As long as senior can bring this junior to participate in the auction, this junior will be very grateful." Xiao Hua quickly smiled. Hee, that's easy. When the time comes and you see something that you are satisfied with, just tell this old man. This old man will help you bid," Hua Zhishan said casually. "However, in the auction that we will participate in, any item will cost a lot of spirit stones. This old man and the others have already arranged the auction for my Hua Zhishan. If you want to bid for something, you will have to pay the spirit stones yourself." "Of course." This junior left for a year to prepare. Xiao Hua smiled. "I don't dare to trouble the seniors." At this time, Hua Furong said, "Great-grandfather, just now when the boy accompanied fellow Xiao here, he received a message from a cultivator. The boy knows that great-grandfather hates this kind of message, so he crushed it. I didn't expect it to be a message from Immortal Music Sect's Taoist Blue Feather." As she spoke, Hua Furong took out the message talisman that the boy crushed. "And I know." Hua Zhishan didn't even look at it. He flicked his sleeve and said, "This guy came for the item that my Hua Zhishan is bidding for." Today, Immortal Music Sect's Li Qingshu came to visit this old man. He didn't even bring his name card. He is obviously using his Mongolian sect's arrogance. Yes, the boy understands. Hua Furong was overjoyed and put the broken message talisman into her storage bag. Seeing Hua Furong take the blame for the boy, Xiao Hua had a new understanding of this temperamental female cultivator. In fact, appearance didn't mean everything. For example, the beautiful Chinee. Xiaohua, actually what this old man wants to say is far from this. Hu Zhishan looked at Hu Furong. He obviously knew what this junior boy had done. He turned to Xiaohua and said, "This old man saw your true samadhi fire and just now, all my previous thoughts were overturned. I want to give you more." Ah? Xiaohua was stunned. He felt that something was wrong. How could there be free spirit wine in this world? He quickly waved his hand and said, "This junior really only wants to ask for a small favor from senior. What are you in such a hurry for?" "Boss hasn't finished yet," Hu Picong said angrily. "We have been discussing for half a day and you don't appreciate it." "Third brother." Hu Zhishan smiled. "Don't scare the child. This temper of yours, Furong has learned it from you." -8. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.